surprises and one heck of a description, brother. I cannot sleep at all after last night, man.
That was
It was
interesting.
like for a guy like me, politics is sports, and I was wired and fired up and watching all the results come in and analyzing what does this mean and who's winning and who's losing.
Yeah, this is like your conference championships kind of thing.
Exactly right. And who's going to the
awesome.
championships in November and all that stuff. So my goodness.
There was some interesting stuff. That was kind of cool last night. And I was out working in a bar, not drinking. But there was a watch party going on next door that was kind of cool. Not next door. It's a overflow space that the bar has, and it's a wonderful space that they use for lots of office parties and team building exercises. You know, I kind of get off the golf course, come in and have, kind of have a little team building exercise, kind of your own area. Yeah. And it was really packed and people were crazy. In fact, there was one time in which one of the results was announced. And again, I'm watching people come in during the bar, and I always try to guess what the demographic is. And all of a sudden I start seeing a lot of red, white, and blue. I'm like, oh, this is a watch party. Because I'm kind of thinking,
here come the conservatives.
Yeah, I'm like, what are we doing on a Tuesday that we're doing this team building? Normally they're there when I arrive if you're coming off a course or something like that. But these people are packing in then. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Then I start seeing a lot of red, white, and blue. And this woman walks in with, I got to tell you, okay, an absolutely fantastic Stars and Stripes shirt. It was one of the better ones I've seen. I'm like, all righty, these are politics people. I'm like, okay, I knew you people. So I didn't know what was going on. The best part about it is I was asking one question, and it had to do with Dallas, Fort Worth, and American Airlines and things. Yeah. And right as I asked the question, the entire crowd over there in the overflow party goes, ah, they cheer. There was some sort of a result that came in. I'm like, evidently we have a lot of plane enthusiasts here. And so everybody laughed at the bar, but it was fun.
And somebody heard your voice and went,
yes.
Are you Bill?
Yeah, that was embarrassing. I actually wasn't going to tell that story on the air in this one, but and I'm happy to. I check in with the bartender at the end of the night. It's courtesy. You make sure, hey, I've cleaned up, everything's set. Does it look like, because the idea for me is it needs to look exactly like it did when I arrived. Does everything look the same? I don't want you to have to do anything to change based on what I did.
That's why they love you.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay. I go, okay, everything's set. I go, TVs are back here. See, this is back here. The tables are back here. Everything's set. I go, is it okay? I'm going to go. And they're like, yeah, absolutely. And at that point, someone at 5 feet down the bar goes, hey, are you Bill? And it's a woman that's come out of the back. And I'm sitting there going, oh no, she's going to throw something at me. And I'm like, no, it's not me. She goes, yes, it is. You're Bill. I'm like, no, that's not me. She goes, I know your voice. I'm like, yeah, that's me. That's fine. And so it turned out to be a friend of your wife's. So that was really funny and a really, really nice woman.
Shout out to Shumei.
Yeah, Shumei. It was really nice meeting her and it was fantastic. So we chatted a little bit and we even took pictures, which was cool.
Oh, that's great.
And again, you know me. So we did the one regular smiling picture. And then I said, I got to give her something she can give to her friends. So I did the picture where I'm smiling and then she's pointing at me like, what the hell? Like, I mean, it's really weird. And I'm like, that's the picture that you use. So she was great. Absolutely wonderful. And they were a really wonderful crowd. I really enjoyed seeing the enthusiasm. I don't know what the organization was. Shumei told me and I forgot. So yeah, but they were really enthusiastic and it was a really, really big day. The thing that I was hearing in some overflows, I'm packing my gear out, were celebrations over certain primary winners that other people in the party weren't so happy about. They were cheering. It was the AFP people. It was AFP candidates.
Yeah, right.
And it was, and I don't know if the guy on the balcony was connected with them or not, but I did hear him saying Americans for Progress and then saying
Americans for Prosperity.
Sorry, Americans for Prosperity. But he'd say ASP. And then he goes, and Americans for Prosperity. And he goes, yeah. And we won and we ran the table. We got all our people in.
They did.
Yeah,
they absolutely did. Yep. And in fact, we're going to talk with the state director for AFP at the 9 o'clock hour, Jesse Mallory. Look, you are not going to find better analysis of what happened last night than what you are going to find on the Jeff and Bill show today. Listen to this lineup. Lauren Boebert joins us in just about 20 minutes. You're not going to want to miss that conversation. Kelly Maher. She went to war against Dave Williams. How did she feel about last night? She's going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. Mike Buck, you heard him on the show. Big news story. The candidates that were funded by developers in Douglas and Elbert County lost big last night.
Ouch.
It was the anti-development crew that ran the table.
Wow.
So we were part of that conversation. Mike Buck from Elbert County be joining us. Greg Lopez, the new congressman from Congressional District 4, will be with us in the 8 o'clock hour. Ted Harvey, big Dave Williams supporter, is going to provide us some analysis on what it means for Dave last night and the Colorado Republican Party. I think winning only about 14 of 8 or losing 14 of 18 of their endorsed candidates last night.
I was going through the list last night and went, oh, that's a loss, that's a loss, that's a loss. And I got to 8 and I was like, okay, I was done with the list. That was as far as that was the only list that I could recall. And I'm like, I know there's more. But the thing that got me was it was the big ones. They lost the big ones. I went, ooh.
In the congressional districts. And so here's the question I have. I've been thinking a lot about this morning was the loss in some of those races. So the 4 congressional races that they endorsed in, they lost 3.
Yeah.
Dave Williams lost, Ron Hanks lost, and Janik Joshi lost.
Yeah. And Janik got pounded. I was like, ooh.
Yeah.
I thought honestly that it was going to be closer. They're both really strong candidates, but
they were good guys.
Yeah. But that was surprising for me that the distance was so large.
So the party's leadership right now is very conservative.
Yeah.
Right. It probably can't get more conservative than the party leadership you have now. Was their failure to win last night a rebuke of the leadership of the party, or did the party make the mistake of endorsing the most conservative candidate in races that aren't necessarily the most conservative? And I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
Congressional District 3.
Yeah.
I think was it a rebuke of Ron Hanks? Was it a rebuke of Dave Williams? Or were the people of Congressional District 3, and this is probably where I lean, just going, you know what? I kind of want to go back to the Scott Tipton days.
Yeah.
Where I'm not reading about my congressperson in the newspaper.
Yep. And here's the thing is now, I did happen as I was driving home to be hanging out on another media outlet. And a friend of the show, Jeff Crank, who he and I had a wonderful exchange. When our afternoon host was in, when Officer Tatum was in, we had a great, and he's a great guy. And I radio
really, guy, AFP as well.
Yeah. Again, and he and I don't see eye to eye on a number of issues, but I appreciate where he's coming from, and I appreciate how he thinks about things. And what I heard last night was different and somewhat remarkable. Is the thing that he was highlighting in this interview was that he can work with other people to get things done for conservative goals.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm not jumping on board on the liberal stuff to make sure they get the stuff across the line. He said, but in order to accomplish conservative goals nationally in the legislature, you need to roll in some Democrats. Otherwise, you can't get it across the line. He said, that's what I can do. And I appreciate that, because to me, I like the idea of what he's saying is I can help solve your problems. I see where your pain points are, and that's what I'm hearing from him, that I am willing to get to it. And that's always been my moan and complaint. And on the other side of the aisle last night, you saw what happened to our Democrat friends. I was watching that a little more closely because
Timmy Hernandez.
Timmy's gone.
Timmy's going to be a community organizer.
He is, and he's it's still close. I think there's about 700-800 votes, but I don't think anything that's out there is going to necessarily swing it. And Epps got pounded, so she's gone as well. And for me, the entire night I'm thinking about it, and I was texting with a friend, and they didn't understand the Democrat, and that was the one that I'm like, oh wow, look at this, because I did not expect some self-correction from the state Dems, and to see Hernandez losing, I'm like, wow, and they're like, well, why is it a big deal? I'm like, listen, you go back to like Monday, and it was a Monday or Sunday, he's on the front page of the Post, and he's standing up there at the Pride celebration behind the microphones, and he's holding the Palestine flag. I'm like, that is the weirdest dichotomy ever. And I said that is kind of the encapsulation of why I think that he had been rejected by the voters. But again, there's about 800. He's losing by about 800 right now. I think they're in the mid 70s to 80 percentile as far as votes.
And Hernandez were taken out back and shot by Jared Polis in the machine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's look, Polis, Weiser, the current Democratic machine did not, when Epps and Hernandez came out and went crazy anti-Semitic and all that stuff, did not call immediately for their resignation, which was kind of interesting.
I thought that was interesting too.
They just went and organized opponents and dumped a ton of money into them and endorsed them and eventually got them out. So they got them where they need to be.
Lesson to be learned if you're on that side of the aisle. Just understand, don't mess with the king. So
did the extremists on both sides of the party go out? Is Colorado a little bit more moderate on both sides? Give us a call. Let us know, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. Andrew texting, my biggest surprise from last night was what seems to be the rejection of Dave Williams and the Colorado GOP endorsed candidates. We're definitely going to get into that today. 9310, Epson Hernandez lost. Woohoo!
That was fantastic. I have to say, that was the one I was paying most
But
attention to.
for those of us that do conservative talk radio, they sure provided a lot of good content.
Yeah, I know that's going to be difficult, but given some of the things they had done and said, I was like, I appreciate that. And again, the other thing is that Epps and Hernandez hasn't won an election. Then he was appointed.
No, he never won an election,
which is kind of an interesting albatross to hang around your neck.
So does he go the Tay route and just work for a nonprofit now?
Oh, he has to. Soon we're going to have him online. He's going to be begging us for money for his kids' diapers, just like Tay. That'll be a thing.
All right. In all this discussion, we haven't done the news yet, which we're going to jump into. And then at 6:30, Lauren Boebert's going to be joining us. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 64 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the mid-90s today. Got to 100 on Tuesday. Probably not today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Patriots! 2024 is when we take Colorado back. It's when we take our nation back, and we set a path on a new trajectory for conservative values.
U.S. Rep. Lauren Boebert celebrating after winning her bid to represent CD4. Boebert expected to defeat her Democratic rival in November.
We secure our southern border. We ensure that our American citizens are living their very best life, that they are prospering, that their children are safe, that they are free from indoctrination and critical race theory and comprehensive sex ed.
Despite the PR speed bumps along the way, she rolled, and Lauren's coming up live at the bottom of the hour with Jeff and Billy. 4 hours of coverage with these two guys. I don't know how they're going to do this, but they're going to talk about it for 4 hours. So keep it right here on KNUS. John Walsh is expected to be Denver's next district attorney. Walsh defeated Leora Joseph in Tuesday's primary. The two Democrats who were vying for a spot in the November election to decide who will replace outgoing DA Beth McCann. In New York, big win for George Lattimore over the self-proclaimed rapper Jamal Bowman. Here's Lattimore and then Bowman.
Our inclusiveness in Westchester County is how we have governed.
Our opponents, not opponent, may have won this round at this time in this place. But this will be a battle for our humanity and justice for the rest of our lives.
Let's hope not. Denver police revealing more details about a deadly officer-involved shooting earlier this month. Authorities say officers shot and killed Miguel Tapia on June 16th at the intersection of North Broadway and Lawrence as she approached them while holding a 7-inch knife. Tapia is believed to be transgender and homeless. Police released body-worn camera footage of the incident. President Biden announcing plans to pardon veterans convicted by the military under a law that previously banned gay sex. The pardons are expected to impact about 2,000 people. It's election year. New York Post reporting, under the National Voter Registration Act of 1993, states must provide applicants for welfare benefits with voter registration forms that do not require proof of U.S. citizenship. Nothing new, but emphasis on the fact that there is no proof required for an illegal individual to vote. Tens of thousands of non-citizens have been discovered on voter rolls recent audits have shown. Post-Millennial reporting that welfare offices giving out voter registration forms to illegal immigrants without proof of citizenship. Now, will the Colorado Attorney General look into this? How about in places like New York or California? Clowns like Elizabeth Warren continue to lie about the southern border as ABC actually presses her on it.
6.9 million apprehensions at the southern border. Thus far, in Biden's term, there were just over 2 million in Donald Trump's entire term. What did the president do wrong?
No, this isn't about what the president did wrong. Remember, on the very first day that he was sworn into office, President Biden asked Congress both for the resources and for comprehensive immigration reform. The Republicans blocked it.
Because it had nothing to do with the southern border.
Senator, he didn't have that either, and there were 2 million.
They actually push back on her, which is that lady, man. I've got she is inching her way into the top 5 for me. Later, I'm going to have a top 3. I mean, it is just a ridiculous day, and I know you guys have all the election news, but there's so much garbage out there.
And then you got all the Supreme Court decisions coming in today, too. So Trump immunity, it's going to be a wild day, which we're going to be breaking all that news. Yep. And then tomorrow night, you got the debate.
Oh, the debate's tomorrow. I honestly, I was thinking it's like 3 days away. Yeah, it's tomorrow night. Yeah. Wow. So much fun. Time flies when you're having fun.
It is fun when you're a political nerd.
Exactly. News brought to you by Lair Fireplace and Patio, Denver's premier source for everything fireplace, patio, and grills, locally owned and operated since 1954, online at lairfireplacepatio.com.
Ball game, 6 in a row for the Astros. The Astros now move as close as they have been to Seattle.
Rockies lose to the Astros yesterday, 5-2. Today at 12:10, first pitch, getaway day. NBA draft tonight, and the Broncos kick off training camp July 26th. Practice with the Packers on August 16th. 58 in Golden, 61 in Glendale, 64 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Hump Day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
710 5-day forecast will have mostly sunny skies today, which will eventually lead to developing showers and thunderstorms towards evening. Some could be severe. Highs in the lower 90s today with lows tonight in the lower 60s. Thursday and Friday, scattered thunderstorms, some potentially strong. Highs upper 80s, low 90s, lows lower 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will continue through the weekend. Saturday's highs in the mid-80s, lower 90s, Sunday. Weather brought to you by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling 720-651-9800 or find out more at branchplanning.com.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
All right, coming up in just about 10 minutes, we're going to hear directly from Lauren Boebert. She had a big night last night, winning in a competitive Republican primary. She won 43%. Let's go through this. Jerry Sonnenberg coming in second, very close to Deb Flora. Jerry Sonnenberg, 14 0.45%. Deborah Flora at 13.68%. We talked about this strategy, Deb going after the independents, and I don't think it worked out.
Yeah, because you need to get the independents to vote in that primary. And I understand that it probably was a very solid strategy for the general, but inside of the primary, that's a tough one. And I think outside of just the, and I don't think it was fair, just the broad generalization of Lauren Boebert's crazy, there wasn't a lot of other sharp pointed attacks as far as why she couldn't do the job here versus in her old district. And I think that was part of the fall down. Lauren and her team did a wonderful job of connecting her experiences in 3 and why it would translate into 4, even though there is some regionality there. They really did a good job, and whoever helped craft that message should get a raise.
The district is one of those unique districts where you can't be conservative enough.
Yeah.
Right. So the bigger the fight, the more the elbows, throw those bombs, stand with Donald Trump. If you remember the Channel 9 debate, Lauren Boebert was asked, and all the candidates were asked, very first questions, who's going to vote for a convicted felon? Arm shot up, no hesitation. And that is not the same as Congressional District 3, and it's not the same as Congressional District 5. It's definitely not the same as Congressional District 8. So you got a unique district where you can go in all Lauren Boebert and do just fine. But Deb Flora made a calculation. She and her campaign, and you saw it here on our show. We talked to her about it.
Yeah.
She looked at the new district being drawn now into Douglas County and Arapahoe County and going, there's a lot of independents. Douglas County, Heidi Ganahl by less than 1 percentage point.
Yeah.
It's no longer a deep red county. It's represented by Democrat down in the state house. And so I'm going to go after those independents. But think of this. Look at this. Douglas County.
Yeah.
Lauren Boebert won Douglas County.
Wow.
The county that Deb was going for.
Yeah.
That was her county. Lauren Boebert won it 42% to Deborah Flora's 20%.
Now, good for Deb getting 20. That's a nice showing, given the problem. But I think you were right that I think there was some easy for me to say, rewind please, as some strategic miscalculation in, you have to go hard right during primary, but then the difficulty is to tacking back to the center when you get into the general. And inside of CD4, the issue was that Ken Buck wasn't conservative enough.
Yep.
That was the blowback from the average voters. So that should have told everybody in the race where the wind was blowing. You should have been on the lake, noticing where that puff of wind was rolling across the top of the lake to know that you had to be right of Ken. You had to, in order to resonate with those voters. And I believe the two that did a good job doing that were Holtorf and Deb. I think that because of some of the, personal attacks that Holtorf threw out there, it kind of hurt some of the other voters and them not wanting to get on the bandwagon with him quite as much. But that's my own personal opinion. Now, I'm curious that if Deb Flora was right about the makeup of the district and that you need to be more moderate in order to win. Do I think a Democrat's going to grab the district? No. But could she be right in the next few election cycles? Could this be something that 4 or 8 years down the road, we could see something impacting that the candidate in that district, rather than being, the Ken Buck-esque Tea Party Lauren Boebert candidate, has to be someone that is closer to a Deb Flora because of the makeup. But again, we won't know that for at least 4 or 6 years. We won't know that at all. And I think we'll get a taste of it in this election based on percentages. But until then, no, I don't think there's any way that a Republican loses that district right now.
I'm going to look up what the previous races in Congressional District 4 look like numbers-wise to see if there's a change, because you did have a general election yesterday.
Yeah.
You had the special election. So you can kind of compare those numbers. Let's see if we can go back to previous years.
It's a really good point.
So in 2022, Ken Buck won that district 60-36. And last night was Greg Lopez 58-34.
Okay, so not too much of a change
So
yet.
not too much of a change, and you had a libertarian, a stronger showing by Hannah Goodman, the libertarian there. But
Okay.
District pretty much looking the same. Lauren's going to essentially just change the placard on her office wall.
Yeah, that's all it will do.
It'll go CD3 to CD4.
Yep, that's all she's going to have to do because there's no way that a Republican loses that district. Now,
No.
Now it will be interesting to see the percentages. And again, just like last night, I thought it was interesting in the percentages because as the numbers that I saw, and I didn't say the final numbers, that somewhere around 50% of the voters in the district did make a choice other than Boebert. Now, everybody else did go for Lauren. However, that doesn't mean in any way, shape, or form that I believe Lauren could have lost if the race was tighter. If you had
If it was
fewer
just two
candidates,
people.
yeah,
Right.
I'm not convinced of that because
Yeah.
I don't think that everybody that didn't
Yes.
vote for Lauren
That's
would
correct.
vote for Lauren. So
And Lauren
yeah.
performed better than Jeff Hurd performed in CD3. So
Yeah.
she won 43.39%. Jeff Hurd, Congressional District 3, 41.29%. And you don't hear anybody going, well, I'm not sure they're going to support Jeff Hurd in
Yeah.
Congressional District 3.
Yeah, absolutely. And they will support Lauren. And
Yes.
my guess would be if it was a fewer number of candidates, if you were down to 2 or 3, she gets up closer to the 55 to 60% range minimum in that because she will capture the other ones. Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to be talking with Lauren Boebert in just about 5 or 6 minutes. Before that, I want to talk to you about Ultra Cur. Look, we all are looking for that edge to be able to experience wellness and overcome pain. Ultra Cur is a wonderful patented non-prescription natural capsule that works fast. Surveys show that 50% of people using Ultra Cur find relief within 48 hours and half of those within 2 hours. Experience Ultra Cur for free. Go to any Denver Metro Natural Grocers and ask for the health coach or the vitamin manager for your free 3-day trial of Ultra Cur. If you've tried everything, even other natural curcumin products that want you to pay to try it, you owe it to yourself to try Ultra Cur for free today. Get curious, Denver. Head to the Natural Grocers and grab your free 3-day Ultra Cur trial with no strings attached. If you're wondering about the research, you can get the lowdown at getultranow.com. That's getultranow.com. Coming up next, Representative Lauren Boebert joins the Jeff and Bill Show. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
It's the morning after a wild Colorado primary night. Good morning. You have tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show. Joining us is the winner of the Colorado Republican primary for Congressional District 4, Lauren Boebert. She will be the nominee going into the general election in November. And looking the way this district does, she will continue her work as a congresswoman. Lauren, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, congratulations.
Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Bill. It is a great, bright, sunny day here in Colorado's 4th District, and I'm getting ready to head to the airport to do some more work in D.C.
Yeah, the work never ends, and it continues with you. Let's talk about last night. You win big. I mean, nearly beating everybody by a margin of 4. Or 4 times beating everybody else in their percentages. How did you do it?
This was the voters' work, but obviously I put in the miles, I put in the time, I made the connections, formed the relationships, established new relationships, and fortified old relationships. But this is all about the people. And, I spoke with President Trump last night, and, he was a little sad that, not all of his endorsed candidates won. And I said, Mr. President, as grateful as we all are to have your endorsement, it's more than that. You can't forget to serve and work for the people. You have to go out in front of people rather than just hanging on this. And that's what makes your endorsement so powerful, because that's what you do. You don't run on your name alone. You have never forgotten about the people who first elected you as president. And so he really appreciated that, but it is so true. You hear from people all throughout Colorado every day. And if we don't have that information from the voters who are being impacted directly in their communities, then we won't know about all the intricate problems that need to be solved. There are many things from my federal level that I can get involved and help smaller communities. And so just being on the campaign trail, traveling well beyond the 21 district or the 21 counties in this district, attending nearly 20 debates and forums and even more Lincoln Day dinners and other events, and just having this contact with the voters is what gave us this massive victory last night. And, I got to tell you guys, before I throw it back over to you, this is the second time this has happened to me in a primary now, where the results were called just minutes after the ballots closed. And we were running just a few minutes behind. I wanted it right at 7 o'clock because I didn't want this to happen as it did in the past. Right at 7 o'clock, I wanted to get started. I wanted to pray and do our anthem and just say a quick hello. And right away, folks were coming up to me trying to show me the results. I said, no, I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. Other people, I would cover my ears. And so I went up there, we honored God, we glorified him. Amanda from Yuma, Colorado led us in prayer. We had the anthem sung, and I got up there and said, listen, I know you guys are seeing a lot of things, hearing a lot of things, but above all, I want to glorify God. I want to honor him, and I want to honor the men and women who have fought for our freedoms in this country, and just set that priority to give them the honor that's due, rather than, just talk about this one thing. And so that's exactly what we did last night. And I'm just so grateful, so honored, so humbled that all of these folks would come out and vote and support me. And it's really it's just truly amazing to have earned that support throughout these past months.
It was a resounding victory for Lauren Boebert in the Republican primary in Congressional District 4 yesterday. Now, Congressional District 4 is a little different than Congressional District 3. Do you feel like you can kind of be unleashed now that you're in Congressional District 4? I mean, it's almost like you can't be conservative enough. You can't support the president enough. We want you all in with that feisty personality you got. Do you feel a little unleashed now?
Well, I think I've always allowed my MAGA to fly. I've never backed away from the president or his policies or from our conservative principles in doing what's best for Colorado and for our country. So I'm excited to to be out here without, maybe as much criticism from the left, because I'm not one of the Republicans who go to DC and appease them and vote Democrat light, just, to make more Democrat friends. Actually, I think it's worked in my favor, even in Washington, D.C., because there are Democrats who respect my principled positions and will have real conversations with me. And guess what? They think that I'm a real person too.
No.
It's weird, I know. But yeah, so here in the 4th District, there's some differences. I mean, we have Douglas County, which is very suburban. We have parts of Weld County and Larimer County that are suburban, but the rest of it is extremely similar to Colorado's 3rd District. We have our rural counties. We have farming and ranching and agriculture. And I actually am starting to see more now why CD3 was always felt so forgotten, because even here in the 4th District, people say, well, you don't know anything about agriculture, farming, ranching. And I'm like, wait, that's all we do there in the 3rd. Or we have a lot of this. Sure, you have more on a much larger scale, but we do this in just about every county in the 3rd District. And I've been working hand in hand with those in the agriculture community. And so, like, wow, this is even Eastern Colorado doesn't understand that, we have this in the West. And so, to be able to bring the experience that I have from the West, meld that in with the East, and then take care of those Southeast counties that border one another in the 3rd and 4th is something that I'm absolutely looking forward to.
Lauren Boebert, triumphant winner in the CD4 primary last night, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to follow up on what you were talking about, the transitory property as far as your experience, knowing the farmers. What I want to ask you is behind the scenes. You don't have to answer this, you don't want to, but when did you and the campaign feel the worm had turned? When you first jumped, it was allegations of carpetbagger, had some issues about your personal life. Will CD4 actually adopt someone like this? And then yesterday, Jeff and I highlight, there's a major news publication that said the big shock is that Boebert's going to win. There were so many strong headwinds, and I was doing kind of a recap last night, going through some of the other major media outlets, and all of them were like, despite all the challenges, despite all the headwinds, but we've had conversations during this primary. The wind has been at your back for some time. Can you talk to us about when you and the campaign felt the worm had turned and why, yet again, mainstream media missed the story?
Well, that you nailed it right there at the end. So mainstream media, the headlines and the narrative that is out there, the wind has never been at my back in that way, in that sense. And they have tried to push me back. But when I'm on the ground with the people and connecting with them, they have real life struggles just as I do. I'm not the first person to have a change of scenery in life. I'm not the first person to have unfortunately gone through a divorce or, had an adult child that has, made their own decisions and, is taking care of his business as an adult and taking accountability. And that's not, saying any guilt on him because, I as a mom, I want to believe his side of the story, and we're
being a parent. Yeah.
Out. But yes. And, but also he knows that I'm there for him and that I support him and I'm proud of him for going through this process and living up to that. But that has always been the wind at my back kind of thing when I'm actually connecting with real people in Colorado. So that's what keeps me going, because those headlines are there to keep me locked up in my home or maybe go and lie in the fetal position under a table and sob. But I know the heart of the people because I'm with them. And so none of that ever gets me down. Actually, Jeff and I were talking, about personality traits, and it's not the outside negativity that ever makes a dent on me or brings me down. It's usually someone who's extremely close to me, that would hurt me if something, negative or false was said. And, and then I'm able to deal with that one-on-one and personally. But being out in Colorado, all throughout our beautiful state, I've always felt that momentum, but also I think folks in CD4 picked up right away that I was not treating this as a coronation. I didn't feel like a victory was owed to me in any sense, and that I was going to put in the work. I was going to show up, and that's exactly what we did. And most importantly, out of this primary, I want us to unify. This has been my message all along the campaign trail. I want Republicans to unify. We don't want the uniparty representing us. The voters made that very clear last night, but we do want a united Republican Party that is going to put America first. And they elected someone who they believe will do that. And so that is my goal right now, is to bring everyone back together and get everyone positioned to take back Colorado and save our country. I received a beautiful phone call from Jerry Sonnenberg last night. And, he was just so humble, kind, and gracious. And he's one of these friendships that have actually formed, despite Ken Bucks resigning and all of this. This is a beautiful relationship that has formed. He is one of our county commissioners, and I look forward to working with him. But I've got to see his heart. I have got to see his compassion and his faith over the past few months. And I'm really grateful for these connections, even with those who hold office that have been formed.
I think you had a number of great candidates in that race. Any one of them would have done a fantastic job, but the voters definitely siding with you. Talking with Lauren Boebert, I want to talk to you about the team that's been built now. Heading into November, Jeff Hurd, Congressional District 3, Gabe Evans, Congressional District 8, Jeff Crank, Congressional District 5, John Fabricatori, Congressional District 6. How do you feel about the Republican Avengers coming together to fight in November? Is it a good team? Are you pretty pumped on it?
This is the team that has been elected, and I'm going to do everything I can to ensure that all Republicans get over the finish line November 5th. And then, those who go to Washington, D.C. with me, they better believe that I'm going to put pressure on them to do what's best for Colorado. I mean, especially in Congressional District 3. I mean, just knowing so many intricate details about that, having so many pieces of legislation that are specific to CD3 that, obviously stretch beyond that as well. But I want to make sure that those priorities are delivered on. I mean, look, I continue to work with Brittany Pedersen. After the redistricting, she absorbed Custer County into her district. And I had a legislation to establish their zip code through the United States Post Office. And this was a very local issue that was very passionate for me, because no one cares unless you live there, unless you are experiencing the troubles of your city not having a specific designated zip code. You would never, ever consider this, ever think about it, but it impacts them every day. It impacts their mail services. It impacts first responders who are trying to get to an address, say in Silver Cliff, and they go to a wrong address because of the zip code. This is life-threatening. And then also just the amount of tax revenues that are lost by those cities where they are generating those taxes, but they'll go to to a nearby city like Westcliff. And so I had a specific bill for Silver Cliff and Custer County, and I gave that to Brittany Pedersen, and I said, I'm on the oversight committee. I have jurisdiction over this issue. I want to help you. I want to continue to help Silver Cliff. And now I have legislation that I've introduced to have over 30 cities throughout our country who are facing the same issue. And 4 of those are in Colorado. We have Centennial, we have Castle Pines, we have Lone Tree, we have Silver Cliff. And I want to get those established because it does matter to these cities. So just like I'm focused on that, where I lost Custer County in redistricting, I'm going to put pressure on our Jeff Hurd in Congressional District 3 to ensure that those priorities are being delivered on, that people have come to me directly with asking for help.
Representative Lauren Boebert, we only got time for one more question. What do you think Ken Buck's waking up thinking this morning?
Ken Buck knew. He knew all along. That's why he resigned. When he saw that fail, he gave up. What's the point anymore? But unfortunately, he made his choice. I would hope that he backs off, the work that he has expressed interest in doing with Kent Theory in bringing ranked choice voting or jungle primaries to Colorado. I think that would be devastating to our state. We have a petition to prevent those, but I think there's also a petition that Kent Theory is working on to ensure we get ranked choice voting or a jungle primary in Colorado. So maybe he's just focused on that, but it's unfortunate the direction that he went and reducing our majority even more in the House. But we do have Greg Lopez,
That's
who
right.
won overwhelmingly in that special election. I spoke with him last night, and we're going to get him out to D.C. And he even spoke with the governor, and the governor said he's going to talk to the Secretary of State to see if he could get that certification expedited so he could get to DC as soon as possible. So that would be lovely. And, it's just a great night for Colorado. The victory isn't mine. The victory is ours. And I'm going to prove to the voters who have elected me that I'm going to work for them. I'm going to serve them. I'm going to find creative ways to legislatively deliver for them. And I hope to make everyone here proud.
Representative Lauren Boebert, big victory last night, over 40 percentage points, beating everybody by a magnitude of 4 in her race. She dominated, she delivered, and now she's heading into a general election. You can go to laurenforcolorado.com to learn more about her policies, and support her campaign if you'd like. laurenforcolorado.com. She's off to Washington, D.C. this morning. Thank you so much for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show, Congresswoman.
Yes, thank you guys so much. I will talk to you soon and often.
Great. Thank you. We'll continue. Speaking of that, Greg Lopez coming up in the 8 o'clock hour. We got Kelly Maher up next. She had a big night as well. She's an opponent to Dave Williams, not on the ballot, but in the battle of politics. So she's going to tell us about how it worked for her. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Great conversation with Lauren Boebert on her victory. Big one yesterday. Magnitude of 4 over anybody else.
That's
so
crazy.
the polls in that race were pretty much spot on.
Yeah, they were.
In fact, she outperformed the latest poll.
Yeah.
It said she was at 40%. She won yesterday at 43%. So,
yeah, she did well.
And there were some great people in this race. And you and I, Billy, talked about this yesterday that, Kyle Clark brought up, well, the only reason that Lauren Boebert's going to win is because nobody else will get out of that race.
Yeah.
And, they should have coalesced. The other 5 should have coalesced around one single candidate to try to stop Lauren Boebert. They didn't see her as that big of a threat.
No.
No. And so it's like, all right, we'll just we'll all go at it. We'll see who wins. And Lauren got the victory.
And I disagree that a smaller field would have been harmful for Lauren, because I'm not convinced that the people that voted for somebody else wouldn't have instead chose Lauren.
That's exactly right. Coming up next, Kelly Maher. She was against Dave Williams, not in a direct candidate way, but she was opposing him, and she had a big night last night. We'll talk to her next. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Seven a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned in to the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS, bringing you the freshest insights and hottest takes from a big primary election night in Colorado last night. Just wrapped up talking with Representative Lauren Boebert. She's heading back to Washington, D.C. Stopped by to have a quick conversation with us as she makes her way to the airport and big night for her. So we're going to get into now Dave Williams and the Colorado Republican Party. Kelly Maher had some strong words to say about Dave Williams. She had filed an FEC complaint against him, did not like his leadership of the Republican Party. And what does last night say about him? She's going to be joining us next. But before that, let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Hey, good morning, Jeff and Billy. 67 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the mid-90s today. We actually got to 100 on Tuesday, probably not today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story.
But when I'm on the ground with the people and connecting with them, they have real life struggles just as I do. I'm not the first person to have a change of scenery in life. I'm not the first person to have unfortunately gone through a divorce or, had an adult child that has, made their own decisions.
Laura Boebert celebrating after winning her bid to represent CD4. She moved to CD4 from CD3 and it worked out well. Boebert rolls and expected to win in November. On with Jeff and Billy last hour.
This was the voters' work, but obviously I put in the miles, I put in the time, I made the connections, formed the relationships, established new relationships and fortified old relationships. But this is all about the people. And, I spoke with President Trump last night and, he was a little sad that, not all of his endorsed candidates won. And I said, Mr. President, as grateful as we all are to have your endorsement, it's more than that. You can't forget to serve and work for the people. You have to go out in front of people rather than just hanging on this. And that's what makes your endorsement so powerful, because that's what you do.
The stage is set to find out who will replace Boebert in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. Jeff Hurd won the Republican primary on Tuesday. He will face Democratic candidate Adam Frisch in the general election in November. Jeff Crank defeats Dave Williams in CD5. Jeff and Billy set to talk about that next. John Walsh expected to be Denver's next district attorney. Walsh defeated Leora Joseph in Tuesday's primary. The two Democrats were vying for a spot in the November election to decide who will replace outgoing DA Beth McCann. In New York, big win for George Latimer over the self-proclaimed rapper Jamal Bowman, Mr. Fire Alarm. And he is out after he loses. An investigation is underway following a death at Chatfield State Reservoir. Authorities say Colorado Parks and Wildlife and Jefferson County Sheriff's Office responded Tuesday to a water rescue. A body was recovered less than an hour later. There were no signs of trauma on the 47-year-old man's body. However, no cause of death has been released. North Glen police are looking for the vehicle involved in a hit-and-run crash this week. Authorities say a person riding a motorized bicycle was hit Monday night at Irma Drive and East 108th Avenue. The victim was seriously hurt, and the suspect vehicle is a dark-colored 2006 to 2016 Chevy Impala. Anyone with information about this crash or has seen the vehicle is asked to call North Glen Police. One of the greasiest people on planet Earth, Adam Kinzinger, right up there with Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney. Kinzinger endorsing President Biden on Tuesday, talking about the former President Trump, actually describes himself.
He is a complete, we know this isn't a surprise. He's a deep narcissist. This is a man that only cares about himself.
You.
He only cares about his reputation.
You.
The fact that he could possibly lose, he's trying to initially inoculate people against believing that he lost because he's a loser.
You.
But the other thing that does, which we saw in 2020, is it does convince people that an election is stolen. And when you look in a self-governing society, we have to know that our vote counts and that whoever gets the most votes is going to win. If you convince a significant...
Get out of here. I can't handle it anymore.
That was funny.
Okay, he's top 3. Okay.
Ball game, 6 in a row for the Astros. The Astros now move as close as they have been to Seattle.
Rocks lose to the Astros 5-2. Today, 12:10 first pitch, getaway day for the Rockies. NBA draft tonight, and the Broncos say that they're kicking off training camp on July 26th. They will practice with the Packers on August 16th. 63 in Boulder, 65 in Aurora, 67 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue on Hump Day right after the election. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Our 710 5-day forecast will have mostly sunny skies today, which will eventually lead to developing showers and thunderstorms towards evening. Some could be severe. Highs in the lower 90s today with lows tonight in the lower 60s. Thursday and Friday, scattered thunderstorms, some potentially strong. Highs upper 80s, low 90s, lows lower 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will continue through the weekend. Saturday's highs in the mid-80s, lower 90s, Sunday. Weather brought to you by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling 720-651-9800 or find out more at branchplanning.com.
Well, she's a nationally recognized Republican commentator and a purveyor of goats and chickens. She led an FEC complaint against the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party, Dave Williams. Her name, Kelly Maher, and she joins us on the Jeff and Bill Show. Kelly, give us a breakdown of last night. How was it for Republicans?
I think it was great for Republicans. And first off, apologies. I am driving home from Colorado Springs right now, so I'm battling Denver traffic already. But it was such a great night for Republicans. Ironically, though, the Colorado Republican Party proper didn't do particularly well with their endorsements, with the exception of Lauren Boebert. Congratulations to her. She won last night, but with the shining exception of her, and I would argue she would have won regardless of the official state party endorsement. They didn't have a great night, did they, Jeff?
They, I believe, endorsed in 18 races, losing 14 of them. So what does that say? Do you think Dave Williams is out of touch with the Republican voters?
Well, he certainly should be, right? Like that is the question now. He has demonstrated that bad faith is not a winning strategy to Congress or frankly anything else. And I think it's now time that Republicans across the state of Colorado stand up and demand, number one, an accounting of what has happened over the last 6 months. Because I think that what we have seen with the amount of mail, the amount of self-dealing, the amount of misuse and abuse of state party resources is borderline, if not criminal. And that is not a thing that as Republicans we should allow at the top of the party for us. But, you know, Jeff, one of the challenges is you can't replace someone with no one. And I'm definitely keeping my ear to the ground to figure out who could step in and take the party back in a direction where they actually want to win something ever again.
Yeah, let's give folks a little background on some of the concerns that you have raised, that others have raised as well about Dave Williams' leadership, particularly spending party resources on his own primary. That has not really ever taken place that I know of in the Republican Party. And then endorsing as well. Usually the Republican Party at least remains publicly neutral. And I used to work for the state party, and I know that the chairperson typically, tries to build the team they want to go into November with, that they think is going to have the best shot. But going so public with endorsements and then utilizing party funds to help your own primary, that was pretty unique. That hadn't happened in the Colorado Republican Party before that I know of.
Well, I mean, you say unique, I say disgusting. right? Like that is it is unprecedented for sure, and it was gross. It was a misuse of state party resources, certainly, and it was disgusting. And he cannot remain chair any longer. And so the question is, who is willing to step up that can unify the different groups of the Republican Party and also can run for state party chair on things like, hey, maybe we should convince unaffiliated voters that we have something that is worth looking at, right? Not on the idea that ever winnowing and ever reducing the size of the Republican Party is the way to prevail. And that was what Dave Williams ran on. And man, I had no idea that he could destroy what was left of the party that quickly. But it is now a season of rebuilding. The actual voters of Colorado really rejected that approach, and they did so decisively last night. And it is now time to take a page from the Colorado voters and say, what is it that they are looking for from the Republican Party?
A question I got for you on last night's results, because I kind of went back and forth on this. I thought, yes, you could absolutely make the argument that this is a repudiation of Dave Williams and his leadership of the Colorado Republican Party, and there needs to be a change over there. Also, you could look at this and go, okay, well, Dave Williams is about as conservative as you can get to lead the Colorado Republican Party, and the people he endorsed were likely the most conservative candidates in those primaries. Are those districts always going to go for the most conservative? So let's talk Jeff Hurd, Congressional District 3, for instance. I wondered if...
Hold on, Jeff.
Go ahead.
Jeff, so can I just... I don't know if I necessarily agree with that premise, right? Because I think that when we're talking about the conservative versus liberal spectrum, I think we also have to put into this the good faith versus bad faith spectrum, right? Because I know that Dave Williams certainly pitched himself as the quote more conservative candidate, but I've known Jeff Crank for 20 years. Yeah. The guy is very fastidiously, consistently conservative and has been for his entire life that I have known him. And additionally, he supported President Trump twice and committed to support President Trump again, despite Dave Williams lying about it. So I don't think that it is, in fact, conservative versus not, as much as it is honest, good faith broker, self-dealing, bad faith dirtbag.
That's very fair. That's very fair. But I wonder too, like, so let's go to Congressional District 5. You were there with Jeff Crank, all that. I looked at both 3 and 5 and I go, you know what? Like with 3, for instance, I think they wanted to go back to the Scott Tipton days of just kind of being like, I don't want to read about my congressman in the newspaper all the time. I don't like the drama. I just want to go back to the days of having a solid Republican congressman that's going to deliver and get away from the drama. And so maybe you're right, Kelly. Maybe it's not conservative versus less conservative, but maybe drama out there in the throwing elbows all the time versus just kind of like with CD5, we want to maintain Doug Lamborn-like leadership. Doug was perfectly fine conservative, but he wasn't always angry tweeting, or making statements that were getting in the news. So my question on you with CD5 was it a repudiation of Dave Williams, or was it the district going, you know what, we like the way Doug Lamborn led, and we like to stick with a guy that's kind of more like Doug Lamborn?
Well, I mean, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, right? I think that people are really sick and tired in many ways of kind of the overwrought political drama. And Dave Williams showed over and over again that is all he's got to bring to the table, right? Like he can't fundraise, obviously. He can't build actual grassroots, obviously. He can't go out and talk to voters, obviously. So all he's got is trying to make earned media plays and act like a victim, which is ironic, by the way, that the contingency of Republicans who ostensibly pretend like they are anti-victimhood are like the number one top victim. I read Dave Williams' his statement last night, and he said, oh, this is just dark money coming for me, and no acknowledgement of his own behavior or his own shortcomings or the fact that he was roundly rejected, not just by like a narrow margin, but he was roundly rejected by the entire district who knew exactly who and what he was.
Kelly Maher joined.
And now it's time for the party to do the same. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Kelly Maher, Republican Strategist, joining Jeff and Bill live. I want to ask you a question about Dave Williams' leadership going forward. And this is what I'm thinking. Inside the world of soccer, a huge fan, there are big tournaments that happen during a season. And those big tournaments are the money makers. It's really important to get your club into one of those tournaments while you're playing the season. I see the analogy of here getting your club, your players into the right positions in order to succeed in the general. I think it's a, if not indirect, but a apropos analogy. What I'm curious about, many times those clubs, when they see the manager picking players that aren't performing and repeatedly making tactical mistakes, they move to replace the manager before it's found out whether or not they make those big tournaments. Question I have is, given this failure of many of Dave Williams' endorsed candidates in the primary, does the Colorado GOP let him still need to coach all the way to the Super Bowl? Or is this an indication that maybe you need to change the manager before you hit the big dance? What do you think?
Oh, we need to change the manager. Like here is I think I said it the last time I was on the show with you guys, which is the first step was defeating Dave Williams last night in CD5. And now the work goes into figuring out what next steps look like for the party. But he may talk about, I'm going to, all of the words that he has put forward are so out of alignment with his actual actions, whether it's looking into the news camera and saying, state party didn't expend any money on me right before the filing that says state party spent money on him, whether it is like the very unclear expenditure of funds on his own mail, whether it is telling Republicans and frankly everyone, don't trust your lying eyes, right? About what he is doing and how he is self-dealing. Like, we cannot have somebody like this at the head of the party. The question is, with whom, what new manager can we replace him? And also, one of the concerns I had very early on, and I still have, is that his approach to the state party has so winnowed and reduced the amount of participation in the actual mechanics of the party that the enforcement mechanisms, right? Like the mechanisms by which we can use the central committee or the executive committee become much harder when you have less and less and less participation because people are so disgusted with the behavior of the institution and Dave Williams at the top.
Kelly Maher, I got to give you a shout out there for using the word winnowed. Love that. The high five. I so appreciate that more than you actually understand. That just makes my little linguist in my brain so happy. Now, I want to play devil's advocate just for a sec. Let's assume that there is a movement to remove Dave from party leadership that failed like it did the last time around. What is the fallout if he is coaching the team as you head into the big election this fall, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, look, we've seen situations like that in the past where state parties in other states have absolutely just imploded, right? And what happens is basically at the national level, they just create workarounds, right? Like in past years, the NRCC, the NRSC, they will run resources and money for targeted districts outside of the state. And I think if we actually manage to ever get an accounting of what Dave Williams and John Hotaling and Tom Bjorklund did with the resources that largely were transferred to state party by outside organizations because of his impotent fundraising, that you will see that they were grossly misspent. And so I think what will likely happen is that workarounds will start to be put into place. And also, like, huge shout out. I know you're going to have him on later. Like, Jesse Mallory and AFP did such heavy lifting and such big work. Like, they did amazing stuff and swept last night. And so, look, there are organizations, there are groups, there are soft money, there are other state parties. There are ways to do that, but ultimately we can't, as Republicans, say this is what Colorado Republicans stand for with Dave Williams as the head. He is fundamentally so flawed. He needs to go.
Talking with Kelly Maher. She's a nationally recognized Republican commentator and purveyor of goats and chickens. Kelly, you get the Jeff and Bill magic wand. We talk about this all the time. You are the queen of the Republican Party and the conservative movement in Colorado, and you get to pick who would be the chairperson of the Colorado Republican Party. If you don't have a name, what are the traits that you'd like to see in that person?
Okay, so here's what I would like if I just get to pick, and I'm trying to figure out who this person is. Number one, somebody who's willing to do it, which is like a very, very small pool. It's going to be an exceptionally hard job, but I would like somebody who doesn't necessarily have aspirations to run, who isn't seeing this as a stepping stone, but who recognizes that having a vibrant and powerful counterweight to the Democrat rule is actually good for everyone in the state of Colorado. So somebody who is interested in building, somebody who understands what is and is not the proper role of the state party, right? Like, the proper role of state party is, number one, not to embarrass us on a national level, looking at you, Dave Williams, somebody who can send messages out and who can be the kind of person that unaffiliated voters say, maybe Republicans have something there. The kind of person who understands from a PR perspective that we are behind and we are down, but there is a lot of opportunity here. And then additionally, somebody who understands the statutorily required nomination of candidates, that process, somebody who can go back to the donor class that Dave Williams has so deeply offended intentionally and say, this is a new day. We are here. We are building. We are going to be gravitational again and can get good faith with the donors. And also somebody who grassroots Republicans have, faith in. Somebody that grassroots Republicans can say, oh, this is somebody who I am willing to follow. I also think it's somebody who has to be acceptable to Jeff Crank, Jeff Hurd, Lauren Boebert, Gabe Evans. Like we need somebody who those people can say, oh yeah, I have confidence in their ability to lead from the donor level all the way to the grassroots level and everything in between.
What do you think?
Just not humiliate us.
What do you think about Jerry Sonnenberg? We had Lauren Boebert on in the 6 o'clock hour, and she said he was incredibly respectful, seems to be able to bridge that gap. I don't know. I'm just throwing a name out there.
I love Jerry. I mean, I've known Jerry for 20 years, and I think he would be great. Like, if I got to pick, I haven't asked her if she wants to run, and she'd probably be mad at me for throwing this out there, but I also think that Clarice Navarro would be super good, because we also have to have somebody like, look, Donald Trump is the nominee for the Republican Party, right? We need somebody who can have the sway and the good faith of Trump world that, frankly, Dave Williams claimed but never really materialized, right? If you look at the fact that, like, he endorsed Janet Joshi, and then Trump came in despite Dave Williams saying over and over again, I've got Donald Trump's cell phone number, and Trump came in and endorsed opposite that in the 8th, right? So somebody who actually has that influence in Trump world, I think, is also very important.
Kelly Maher, nationally recognized Republican commentator. By the way, her X handle, if you want to follow her, is OK Maher, Maher. If you want to follow her there. Big night for her, a vocal opponent against Dave Williams. And I appreciate you, Kelly, taking time to be on the Jeff and Bill show.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. It's so good to talk to you guys.
We'll continue this conversation about Dave, because Ted Harvey's going to join us in the 8 o'clock hour. Look, it really pains me to have Republican civil wars. I just don't like it. But I understand that that's what happens in politics. I worked for the state party when it was more in Kelly's camp.
Yeah.
And the complaint then was, you're never conservative enough. You're never conservative enough. And you never and I just wanted at that point to go, hey, guys, stop it. Let's go beat Democrats.
Yeah.
That's all I care about. Yeah. So there's this sympathy where I don't want to get pulled in Civil War stuff, but I understand, like, Dave went all in.
Yeah.
He literally pushed all of his chips into the game.
Yep.
And if he had had a big night last night, I think we would have had a different conversation, because I invited Dave on, and I love to talk with Dave.
I would too.
And he's still welcome to come on. And look, we're not the type of show, Billy, that's going to like gotcha questions, browbeat you, drive an agenda type of stuff.
No,
we just want to have the conversation.
Yeah.
And give people the chance to share their perspective. And so Kelly went in against Dave and won last night.
Yeah, she did.
She had a big night.
And we had a caller during Kelly's conversation that I want to take the question the caller had, and I want to pose it to you, but I think we should address it later on in the show, maybe in the 9 o'clock hour when we have a little more space. And I want to tease it this way so people can hang with us or maybe come back if you're doing something else. But the 9 o'clock hour, the question that Jeff and I are going to address is, we talked about grading Dave on wins and losses.
Yep.
The season isn't over, but we do have a mid-season scorecard.
Yep, right.
So what do we think? Don't tell me anything right now, but we'll talk about that in the 9 o'clock. How would we grade him so far and what we think going forward?
One of the smaller side stories, but equally important, because we had him on the show, was how developers are investing in the races in Douglas and Elbert County. They put big money into those races and lost across the board. Mike Buck, no relation to Ken Buck, wins the Republican nominee for county commissioner, signaling a very strong signal that Elbert County is going to be going a different direction with their development. This is a developing story. You're not going to want to miss. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Hear what Jeff did with the language there?
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. New York Congressman Jamal Bowman has lost the most expensive House primary race ever held. The 48-year-old Democrat has been a vocal opponent of the Israeli military operation in Gaza and the subsequent US support of it. Almost $25 million was spent on the race, with significant sums invested by pro-Israeli groups. 70-year-old George Latimer comfortably won the race. Bowman becomes the first member of the informal left-wing squad in Congress to lose his seat. President Biden could announce the biggest pardon of his career today for all US military veterans who were convicted of having same-sex relations while serving their country. Tony Waterman has more.
According to CNN, which first reported this story, the pardon would impact about 2,000 people, allowing them to gain access to withheld benefits. But first, they will need to fill out an application for the pardon, which will then need to be approved. Gay sex was banned in the military for 62 years before Congress rewrote the law in 2013. Now, the pardon would come just a day before Biden squares off against Donald Trump in the first presidential debate.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. We're talking the Colorado primary races that took place yesterday. My goodness, fireworks all around. We just heard from Maher. She had a big night. She's not a fan of Dave Williams, and she was letting it fly with what needs to happen to him. He needs to find another line of employment. He's the chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. But in the 8 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to Ted Harvey, who is a fan of Dave Williams, and we're going to get his perspective. Look, You all are invited into the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710KNUS app. One of the stories that we picked up that nobody else did, Billy, was that there was a lot of money going into county commissioner races down in the southern part of Denver.
Yeah, and this is important because it is a window into the larger difficulties we are having with development. It really shines a light on what developers are doing behind the scenes, what they think the solutions are, and whether or not they fit with the solutions that Colorado neighborhoods are looking for.
That's exactly right. And so we had a little bit of a tense conversation with Priscilla Ron about this. She was getting some money from developers. She did not win last night. And we also hosted Mike Buck and Bob Lewis. They were competing county commissioners seeking the Republican nominee in Elbert County. And last night, Mike Buck, who made it very clear he wanted to reevaluate the development that was taking place in Elbert County because it was starting to look like Aurora. And I live there, so this is a little personal to me. Mike came on, Bob Lewis came on, Mike winning big time. 66% over 15 and 17% for some other candidates. He won big. This is a sea change in Elbert County against development. And he joins us on the Jeff and Bill show. Mike, congratulations on your victory yesterday.
Congratulations.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for the call this morning. I appreciate it. And the first thing I want to do is thank God for the victory.
Amen. So let's talk about what you think the voters of Elbert County were trying to say by putting you in as, and look, you're now the Republican nominee, but Elbert County is so conservative that oftentimes they don't even run Democrats. So you're going to get the spot. What were voters saying about selecting you?
Well, I think they spoke loud and clear that they were tired of the pro-development direction that the county was headed. And, you know, they, along with myself, just stood up and said, hey, we've had enough. We've seen it. We don't enjoy it. We don't like that lifestyle. And we want to back away from that pro-growth Aurora style of development. And we're looking very excited. Last night, my phone's been ringing off the hook just from people I don't even know. This morning already starting up. And I'm going to work first thing this morning at 9 o'clock at a BOCC meeting, getting ready to go to work. I want to get some input on a issue that they're discussing this morning, and we're getting started.
Look, this was an overwhelming victory, and this was a very clear message sent. You're the type of guy that the voters want in rural districts. Now, look, Elbert County, incredibly red Republican county. It's not like we're anti-property rights, but or anti-growth at all. But this idea of just turning large ranches over to big multi-family development, which you see happening all over the eastern part of Colorado, the residents saying they don't want this anymore. So tell me how you are going to balance the need for economic growth while maintaining the rural commitments, values, and feel of Elbert County.
Well, one of the things that I think we stood out above the competition in this race was we actually had a plan to do that. So I've been on the Planning Commission for the last couple of years. I'm seeing how it's done, and wasn't impressed, and we had to stand up and do something about it. But my opponents, first of all, they were taking money from developers in their race. How does that, lend itself to be unbiased when an application comes in if you've accepted donations from those same developers? Okay, so that's one thing. But to sit up there in front of a crowd of people and say, hey, we want to keep it rural, but have no idea how to do that and the steps that it takes to do that, that's something else. And I think the voters out here are smarter than they were given credit for, and they could see through that, and they spoke loud and clear.
Well, let's talk about those steps, because we have listeners all along the Eastern Plains, including in political leadership, that would like to learn from you. You have a plan. What does that look like?
Well, it starts with defining rural community. We spoke about this a little bit when you had me on the show a month or so ago. It starts with defining what that means as a county, and then implementing a survey, widely distributed survey, to get the input on what the citizens want for the future of the county. What do they envision it? What do they want it to become? So everybody's visions is a little bit different. Then up there, comprehensive plan. Now, one of my opponents helped write the current comprehensive plan back in 2018, 2019, that encouraged cluster home development. So the developers could walk into our meetings and they could sit and point to our own comprehensive plan and say, look, it says right here that this is the type of development that you guys want here. Now you're not going to vote for it? What are we doing wrong? And that's where that disconnect came in. When our rules and regs were written and when our comprehensive plan was written back in 2018, that's where that disconnect started. Now, and I don't believe that that's what the citizens, and I know for a fact, I've talked to a lot of people, and I know for a fact that's not what they want.
Have you gotten any calls? You said you got a lot of them. Have you gotten any calls from developers since your victory yesterday?
Well, I got calls leading up to the race. When they started seeing that I may be the front runner and they started seeing the momentum that we were gaining leading into the election day, they started calling. And, so we'll kind of see how that goes. But, I'm in no hurry to meet with them, no hurry to talk to them. But, they're businessmen. And I understand that they want to kind of get their arms wrapped around where my head's at and where my, co-commissioners' heads are at this point. Because it's going to be a change. They're going to have to adapt.
Mike Buck, candidate for Elbert County Commissioner, got through the primary last night. Congratulations. So what I'm hearing here on the Jeff and Bill show is that it seems like in pockets of Colorado, the key to victory is listening to the actual voters. That's weird. Do the Democrats know about this thing? Because I don't think they do that very often. I think you've hit something, sir, that really should resonate with a lot of candidates out there. And Lauren Boebert earlier, who joined us, said the same thing, talked about the importance of connecting with the voter. As we wrap up, tell us just a little bit about why politicians out there should be reminded. It's not necessarily party affiliation. It's not necessarily the endorsement all the time, but the hard work is the connecting with the voters and why that brought you across the finish line.
Well, and here's another thing, Bill. There's a difference between connecting with the voters in a primary or during an election cycle, but the rubber meets the road is when it's time to vote and it's time to represent those citizens.
Yeah.
So are you going to talk about it, or are you actually going to implement it, and you're going to implement a plan? That what I want to do is I wasn't a perfect candidate. I'm not going to be a perfect commissioner, but I'm going to do everything I can to earn the respect of the Elbert County citizens.
That's crazy that you say that, Mr. Buck. No relation to Ken Buck, because there's someone that the name reminds with Solus or Folus or something in the state that does that all the time, who says one thing and then doesn't do that actually. So that would be a good lesson. Thank you for your time today.
Mike Buck.
Hey, no problem.
Mike Buck won the Republican nomination for county commissioner, along with some other county commissioners in Elbert County that are going to take the county in a different direction. This is going to be, I think, a bit of a change for Republicans, and we're not opposed to development. We're not at all. We're not opposed to property rights, but there's been an effort to bring in high-density, multifamily cluster homes into Denver area and the suburbs around it that have fundamentally changed our state. And we as Republicans have to have that conversation. Developers put big money into Douglas County races and into Elbert County races and lost yesterday. So this is a policy change that's developing, and I appreciate Mike Buck taking the time to be on the Jeff and Bill show.
Hey, thanks, guys. You guys have a great day.
Hey, you too. Enjoy yourself.
So for those out there on the Eastern Plains that feel frustrated by this type of development, Mike Buck is the guy to connect with, and he's laid out a vision. And I think this will be something that
I think it's a blueprint.
That's right.
I think it'll really help, because we've talked about it over and over on the show about the stretch that we're having with housing, how housing has become unaffordable, but the solutions we have from the Democrats right now aren't going to solve it, because they won't fix construction defects. They're looking at high density housing in certain areas that aren't necessarily applicable to neighborhoods. And the number one thing is they move these high density housing in there without the infrastructure, which I mean things like looking at planning for schools and things like grocery stores and and where you're going to get your gas. Those things aren't planned for. It's just about then putting the houses up. And finally we're getting some people in that are going to look at how do we protect the Colorado way of life.
Yes.
Yeah, that, like Jeff says, which is very apropos. I live in Aurora. I like where I live in Aurora. I don't want the whole state to look like Aurora. I don't. It shouldn't. It
Especially
really
when you got to drive 45 minutes to get to Aurora, and it's all now looking like Aurora.
Exactly.
I lived in Los Angeles. I went to grad school in Pasadena, and it is just one big city.
Yeah.
It just grows and grows and grows. And what Democrats and developers have figured out about Colorado is you can just keep going east.
Yeah, we don't have to go
east and east
We can
and
go
east
out.
and east and east and east. And all of a sudden, Denver's going to look a lot more like that.
Absolutely.
So big developing story that nobody else covered, but we did because we live in these communities and are actively involved. I want to talk to you all about my friends, Joyce and Brent Tolliver with Roll 'em Out Shelves. I was using my Roll 'em Out Shelves yesterday. I love them because we have these deep cabinets in our kitchen. We have a small kitchen, and so everything's kind of stacked on top of each other. And we used to just lose stuff into the back of our cupboards. Now we have these sturdy Baltic birch shelves that are amazing. I pull them out. I'm able to access everything. Our kitchen is less cluttered than it used to be. It's easier to access everything. We had them installed in our laundry room as well. This has been one of the best perks of getting and working at 710 KNUS is getting to know the Roll 'em Out Shelves people. You've had them installed at your mom's house.
Yeah, they're amazing. And she actually has mentioned a couple of times how much easier it has made for her to reach those things in the back of her bathroom shelves. Because, she's older, and you end up just with a pile of stuff that you just have inside that bathroom sink underneath, and then you're sorting through stuff. And then there's, as Jeff says, the weird stuff in the back that you never are able to access. They were able to give her the ability to access every single square inch of that cabinet, but with the added ease of grabbing the shelf and pulling it out. So everything that you have stored there, you still have all the volume, but you also have all the clutter disappears immediately. So it's sorted, it's where you need to, and you never forget that you bought that extra thing that you went out and you're like, wait, I already have 5 of those. So as Jeff can testify to about frosting.
About frosting.
Yes, you had a
we
lot
had
of frosting.
10 cans of chocolate frosting.
And never
They
again.
got lost in the back of our cupboards.
Never again, thanks to Roll 'em Out Shelves.
Give them a call today, 303-475-9601. That's 303-475-9601 or rollemoutshelves.com. Tell them Jeff and Bill sent you. Rollemoutshelves.com. In the 8 o'clock hour, the new congressman from Congressional District 4, Greg Lopez, joins the Jeff and Bill show. You will not find any better coverage of what happened last night in the Colorado primaries than you will on the Jeff and Bill show, 710 KNUS. So you got to be sticking around. We'll be right back. It's Jeff and Bill.
News Talk 710 KNUS. We just had a Jeff.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Just getting an email from the GOP. Just got a text message on it, too. Thanks, Marion Inglewood. Keeping on top of it. We got the best listeners, Marion. They are always on top of this stuff. Congratulations to all our nominees across the state who worked hard and won their respective primary races. This is from the Colorado Republican Party just minutes ago. Primary elections can be tough, but now it's the time to shift our focus towards defeating Joe Biden and all the radical Democrats who are harming Colorado and the nation. Needless to say, this is a critical election cycle for Colorado and our country, and we look forward to working hard to re-elect President Donald J. Trump and electing Republicans up and down the ballot. Over the next 5 months, Colorado Republicans will show the people of Colorado how Colorado Democrats have gone too far to the left and why voters should restore balance back to the state with Republican gains come November. Now is the time to come together to help get President Trump and our nominees across the finish line. Together, we can turn Colorado around and ensure victory for our Colorado conservative way of life, respectively, Colorado Republicans.
Oh, they want to hug it out. That's
They
cute.
do.
That's what they want, and that's what they need. That's a nice, positive email on a day in which there weren't a ton. I mean, there's some good positives, but for the Colorado Republican Party itself and the apparatus, not as much. And I didn't go with I didn't go apparatchik. I didn't go that far, but the apparatus inside the Colorado Republican Party, not necessarily a good day for them. But it was nice to see them say, "Okay, guys, let's hug it out and realize the direction we're going." This is going to be interesting.
I mean, like I said, Dave went all in. He went in and said, "These are my people. This is who I want to win."
Yeah.
And
that is the danger. That is absolutely the danger. When you put yourself out and say, "Let me do this."
Because he could have easily have just been like, like what most chair people have said is, we're not getting into the primaries. We're staying outside of it. We're going to support whoever wins, and he could be having a very different day today.
Yeah, he could, and it could be more of the celebratory rather than, and that's the question is, he did, and to his credit, he took responsibility. He said, I am going to drive this in a new direction, a different direction, and a lot of the people that voted for him and put him into power wanted something different, said what we were doing in the past wasn't working, and I don't think there's a single person that can say, Dave is doing what you've done in the past. I don't think a single person. He's doing things very, very, very different.
Very true.
But then you get to evaluate whether or not the different works. Different isn't always better. And that was something I had to learn very painfully as a kid. Very, very painfully. And that was a lesson my father taught me that, just because it's a different idea doesn't mean it's a good idea. You dum-dum. And then he would smack me sometimes.
So coming up here in just a minute, Greg Lopez, the new congressman from Congressional District 4, is going to join us. And we are minutes away from the U.S. Supreme Court dropping some new opinions. Is immunity for Donald Trump coming up on the Supreme Court decision list? We're going to get to all this and more. It's a wild news day on the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
8 a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. It is the morning after a wild Republican and Democrat primary in our state, and we are covering all the news, providing all the analysis, and diving into the discussions that matter most to you right here, right now. What does this all mean for the future of our state? Well, since the beginning of the show, we have talked to Lauren Boebert, winner of the Republican nomination for Congressional District 4 last night. We talked to Kelly Maher, a nationally recognized Republican commentator. She is not happy with the direction of the Colorado Republican Party, would like to see some changes there. Mike Buck is going to be a commissioner in Elbert County, talking about how the changes are going to be taking place in development, particularly in rural districts. And coming up next, Greg Lopez and Ted Harvey in this hour. Woo! Greg Lopez wins the special election last night. He's now effectively the new congressman for Congressional District 4, replacing Ken Buck to finish his term. It'll be a 6-month term. We'll talk to Greg about what he hopes to do there. Ted Harvey supporting Dave Williams in the direction of the Colorado Republican Party. We'll be talking to him later in the hour. And then in the 9 o'clock hour, Jesse Mallory of Americans for Prosperity and Jeff Crank, just added to the lineup, will be joining us as well. Jeff Crank won the Republican nomination for Congressional District 5. So it's an absolute fire show you're not going to want to miss. And in addition to this, we have new Supreme Court rulings coming up. We'll get into all this and more as breaking news comes in. Let's check in on the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Wow, what a show, Jeff. Great job, Jeff and Billy. 71 and sunny in Denver, expecting highs in the mid-90s today. Probably won't get to 100 like we did on Tuesday. The 7-10 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Always allowed my MAGA to fly. I've never backed away from the president or his policies or from our conservative principles.
Lauren Boebert feeling good today in her new District 4 as she wins big. Boebert moved to CD4 from CD3, and it worked out well. Republican voters there believe she'll represent them best in the swamp. On with Jeff and Billy last hour.
This was the voters' work, but obviously I put in the miles, I put in the time, I made the connections, formed the relationships, established new relationships, and fortified old relationships. But this is all about the people. And I spoke with President Trump last night, and he was a little sad that not all of his endorsed candidates won. And I said, Mr. President, as grateful as we all are to have your endorsement, it's more than that. You can't forget to serve and work for the people. You have to go out in front of people rather than just hanging on this. And that's what makes your endorsement so powerful, because that's what you do. You don't run on your name alone. You have never forgotten about the people who first elected you as president.
Who will replace Boebert in CD3? Jeff Hurd won the Republican primary Tuesday. He'll face Democratic candidate Adam Frisch in the general election. Jeff Crank defeats Dave Williams in CD5, and Republican strategist Kelly Maher says Williams using GOP resources for his own campaign didn't help.
It was disgusting, and he cannot remain chair any longer. And so the question is, who is willing to step up that can unify the different groups of the Republican Party and also can run for state party chair on things like, hey, maybe we should convince unaffiliated voters that we have something that is worth looking at.
Maher on with the fellas last hour. Mike Buck, no relation to Ken, wins the Republican nomination for commissioner in Elbert County.
My opponents, first of all, they were taking money from developers in their race. How does that, lend itself to be unbiased when an application comes in if you've accepted donations from those same developers?
New York's Jamal Bowman lost his seat in the 16th Congressional District to pro-Israel candidate George Latimer. In Utah, 4 Republican candidates were vying to replace my top 3 slimeball Mitt Romney, with John Curtis beating Trent Staggs. Denver police revealing more details about a deadly officer-involved shooting earlier this month. Authorities say officers shot and killed Miguel Tapia on June 16th as she approached them while holding a 7-inch knife. Tapia is believed to be transgender and homeless. Police released body-worn camera footage of the incident. Hey, you could feel it, you could see it, and you can hear it. Democrats just ginning up the violence. Getting us ready for more chaos this summer and possibly after the election. That's what they do best. Pump it up with, lead chaos creator Maxine Waters.
All of those people who joined in the civil rights movement, who are not Black, who are not people of color, who joined with us to try and get justice and equality in this country. But we see they were killed, they were murdered. And I do believe that, having listened to Donald Trump so many times and having the attack, the insurrection that took place on the House of Representatives, in Congress, on the Capitol grounds, that we could be in for more killings like that.
Oh, yeah, she's ready to go. She's going to amp it up again. Just keep an eye on Maxine Waters in the weeks to come.
Ball game, 6 in a row for the Astros. The Astros now move as close as they have been to Seattle.
5-2, Rockies lose to the Astros today, 12-10 first pitch. NBA draft tonight, and the Broncos kick off training camp July 26th. Practice with the Packers on August 16th. 70 in Lakewood, 69 in Brighton, 71 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Pump it up. Here we go. It's hump day. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Our 710 5-day forecast will have mostly sunny skies today, which will eventually lead to developing showers and thunderstorms towards evening. Some could be severe. Highs in the lower 90s today with lows tonight in the lower 60s. Thursday and Friday, scattered thunderstorms, some potentially strong. Highs upper 80s, low 90s, lows lower 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will continue through the weekend. Saturday's highs in the mid-80s, lower 90s Sunday. Weather brought to you by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling 720-651-9800 or find out more at branchplanning.com.
We're going to get to Greg Lopez here in just a second. Supreme Court decision coming in. Go ahead.
We don't deserve Blake.
Oh, I know. That was so good.
Oh, my God. That's killing me. That's killing me to pump it up, Blake. Oh, man. High five. Oh, we do not deserve him. Oh, he's fantastic. Sorry. Go ahead.
No.
I had to.
U.S. Supreme Court decision, Murphy v. Missouri, written by Justice Barrett, 6-3, with Alito joining Thomas and Gorsuch in dissent. Basically making the argument that the state of Missouri that was suing Facebook and others don't have standing when it comes to the 2020 election season and COVID-19 pandemic. This is a case about social media jawboning the government's communications with social media companies during the 2020 election season and COVID pandemic. The court holds that the challengers, 2 states and 5 social media users, do not have standing that is a legal right to sue. This is another decision reversing the Fifth Circuit, which held that communications by government officials with social media platforms made the government officials responsible for the platform's content moderation decisions. The Fifth Circuit, Barrett writes, was wrong to do so. The challengers contended that the restrictions that they experienced in the past on social media platforms could be attributed to the defendants and that the platforms will continue to censor their speech. But the court rejects that, saying that the platforms had independent incentives to moderate content, often exercise their own judgment. To be sure, the record reflects that the government defendants played a role in at least some of the platform's moderation choices, but the Fifth Circuit, by attributing every platform decision, at least in part, to the defendants, glossed over complexities in the evidence. The Fifth Circuit was also wrong, the court says, in treating the challengers, defendants, and social media platforms each as a unified whole. The challengers needed to show that they were injured with regards to each platform and each defendant.
Oh, that's interesting.
Alito's dissent, saying that if the lower courts are correct in assessing the voluminous record, this is one of the most important free speech cases to reach the court in years. So
I love the fact he used the word if. Yeah. So he's not actually coming to that conclusion. He's just saying, well, if they were right, and the court said, the other people on the court said, no, they were wrong. They directly refuted, his statement on that one. That's interesting. And I appreciate the standing argument. I understand why, because standing is going to be difficult in this issue. But I do appreciate Boebert talking about moderation. And we've talked about it on the show before, that the idea that the social media platforms should not be moderating is a misnomer. Every single user wants moderation, demands it from their social media platforms. And before you say, no, Bill, you crazy person, you don't know what you're talking about. If you had no content moderation on YouTube, when you get onto YouTube, you would just see the last 1,000 videos that were uploaded, regardless of subject matter, regardless of what they're talking about or anything else. So good luck finding the ones you want to find. That's content moderation. That's how it works.
We'll continue to follow the breaking news coming out of the U.S. Supreme Court. New decision just coming out, but we'll watch that. So far, nothing on immunity or January 6th yet. So we'll continue to watch. All right, let's go to the new congressman from Congressional District 4. He'll be assuming the office as soon as it's verified by Jenna Griswold. He will finish out Ken Buck's term, which will carry him into January. Ladies and gentlemen, Greg Lopez, thanks so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, congratulations.
Hey, good morning, guys. It's a pleasure to be on your show again.
I still have your button, and yours is the only campaign button I wore the entire season, my friend. Yours is the only one.
Well, there you go. You know, I mean, we made Colorado history.
Yes.
So I would hold on to that button. You never know.
Absolutely.
Big night for you, not even close. You win big in Congressional District 4, nearly 60 percentage points over everybody else, including a Democrat and a Libertarian. What do you think the voters of Colorado are saying by giving you an overwhelming victory last night?
You know, Jeff, I think what they're saying is, look, we want a conservative voice to represent us in Congress. You know, he understands our concerns. He understands the Constitution, and he's going to go up there and he's going to fight for us. You know, look, I've always put people over politics, and I will always continue to do that because that's what a public servant does. And I think they understand that I am going to be their employee. It's not the other way around. I'm going to deliver their message and see what I can do to make sure that we preserve our union and we preserve our republic, because it's important for us to make sure that we continue to have our freedoms and our liberties the way our founding fathers outlined it from the very beginning.
And you're only going to get 6 months to do some work. So what do you hope to achieve in that 6 months?
Well, you know what? Here's what I hope to achieve. First of all, I hope to bring a statesman-like content and voice to the Capitol and to Congress, looking at the totality of issues and making sure that we're look long-term into the decisions we're making. You know, the border crisis, I'm going to bring forth a program that was introduced a couple of years ago called the Red Card Solution. Now, this is for non-citizens work permit. Helen Kriebel, a good friend of mine that was in Parker when I was mayor, she introduced it, and it's a concept by which if you're here to work, you have this red card. You're sponsored by an employer, and we understand why you're here. If you don't have this red card, then we got to question, why are you here in America? What are you doing? You know, and this is going to help kind of alleviate a lot of the concern of criminals and those that we need to deport and those that we don't need to deport. So that's one of the things that I hope to plant the seed on. I know that I'm not going to be able to finish it, you know, in 6 months, but me establishing and introducing it, hopefully over the next year, this is something that Congressman Boebert, as the new representative for Congressional District 4, will carry forward. You know, I also want to work on the budget and educate people of what it is that the national debt is and what does that mean. You know, when we talk about trillions of dollars, a lot of people just kind of glaze over their eyes because they have no idea what a number with 14 digits looks like. And what does it mean, to the future of our nation? So it's going to be a lot of education, a lot of planting seeds. But my hope, Jeff, is that when I leave, people will say, you know what? He was only here for 6 months, but he really brought some good conversations to the table. He was one of those individuals that caused us to think, be outside the box. And really, who knows what he would have achieved if he was here longer. That's my goal. That's my objective, because we need to bring Colorado back into the forefront, because Colorado is a vital state as it pertains to our nation.
What do you think of the Republican team that's going to be going forth congressionally this November? Jeff Hurd, Congressional District 3, Gabe Evans, Congressional District 8, Jeff Crank, Congressional District 5. They were in competitive primaries. John Fabricatori, Val Archuleta, those in non-competitive primaries, they won yesterday. What do you think of the team? Are you proud of where the Republican Party is after last night?
I really feel good about where the Republican Party is with these candidates. I know them. I know Jeff Hurd. I saw him when I was out there in Pagosa Springs and in Montezuma and so forth. Look, my role now as a sitting congressman, once I get sworn in, and I'm just waiting for the Secretary of State's office to send a letter to the Speaker to say, hey, go ahead and swear him in, because me certifying the vote isn't going to change the outcome. So let's not wait. Let's just get him sworn in as quickly as possible so that CD4 has a voice again in Congress. But my goal is to help every one of these candidates garner the Hispanic vote. Look, Hispanic Americans are conservatives. They truly are Republicans. They just don't know it. Their belief of faith, family, and freedom is really what the Republican Party stands for. And I'm going to be that voice. I'm going to go out there and do the best that I can do to help them win their elections, because it's time for Colorado to become the state that we all want it to be. And we got to stop it from becoming California. So these are the types of things that I want to do with these other candidates, is reach out and help them to the best of my ability.
Now, Greg Lopez, I want to interrupt you just there for a second. Congratulations again on your win. And I want you to, if you can, just for the Jeff and Bill show, please lean into that message about the core Hispanic community. That has been something I have been trying to yell for years, that this assumption that the immigrants, legal, illegal, doesn't matter, when they're here, that they're automatically Democrats. The assumption is always they're going to be Democrat voters. I disagree. Central and South America is much more conservative in many ways. Many of the Republican values and traditions will resonate with that community. I think, like you, that rather than saying the Democrats are importing all these new voters, we should look at it and say, thank you for giving us an entirely new constituency that absolutely, once they hear our message, will vote with us. Please do the Jeff and Bill show a favor and go and just trumpet that message with your other Republican colleagues, because that will be a growth opportunity for the party in ways they don't understand. Please, 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 please.
I totally agree with you, Bill. That's a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
The Hispanic community is gaining influence politically and economically. This is the group that's going to, in my opinion, help save the republic, because they truly believe in those values of faith, family, and freedom. So you can be rest assured I will continue to say that.
Oh, thank you.
Now, the Colorado Republican Party went 4 for 18 for their endorsements last night. Do you trust, Greg Lopez, do you trust that the current leadership of the Colorado Republican Party can achieve victories this November with only going 4 for 18 last night?
Look, you know what? You look at the trends, you look at what happened. This is what people really value and gauge leadership on, is when you take a position and you are not successful and you lose to these types of quantities, people lose faith, and rightfully so. Look, I think right now every candidate needs to recognize that it's their campaign, it's their ability to go out there and connect with their voters. What the state party does, it's going to be something that may or may not be helpful. But I would encourage all candidates, take this campaign, make it yours, and go out there and talk to the people, talk to the voters, do everything you can because the state party itself, it seems like it's going to go through some evolution again because of what's happened. But for now, let's focus on the elections. Let's win in November, the candidates that we have, and let's move forward.
Do you think Dave Williams should remain chairman of the Colorado Republican Party?
You know, I think Dave clearly has made some errors in his leadership, but I think, you know what, the people are going to decide. You know, I mean, look, he got voted in. There's a process by which when you want to remove someone, you got to go through a process. I don't know if he's going to be looking to be the state chair again come March or February of next year, or if he was even going to be able to do that, because I'm hearing that there could be another meeting happening before then. Look, we know Christy Burton Brown, when she lost the races that she did, people said, okay, we're tired of losing. We need someone that can actually lead us into victory. And what we just saw happen at the state party again shows that we're not winning, we're not gaining ground, we're losing ground. It's time for us to start moving forward.
Greg Lopez, the new congressman from Congressional District 4. If you want to follow him on X, his X handle is Lopez for Colorado, or CO. Sorry, Lopez for CO. His website, Greg Lopez, LOPEZ.co. If you want to learn more about him now. Did you get a call from Mike Johnson yesterday?
Yeah, I got a long text from him, saying, hey, Greg, I'm really happy for you. Can't wait for you to come up here. Can't wait to get you sworn in and make you part of the Republican team. And so, like I said, Jeff, right now, the only thing that's holding me up from going to Washington is a letter from the Secretary of State's office to the Speaker saying, hey, he won the election, swear him in. Nothing's going to change between now and my certification. So let's get people to see for a voice. That's what's holding us up. But you know what? I'm excited about it. I'm looking to get down there and be a part of that team.
Yeah, it's not a good thing when you're like, we're just waiting for Jenna. It's not a good thing. Just saying, my friend. All righty, now I got a question for you. Now, you are going to be part of a very, very important Colorado GOP relay race. You're carrying the baton right now, my friend, and here in a few months, you're going to hopefully hand it off to Lauren Boebert, friend of the show. She was on earlier today with us. What I want to ask you is, what are you going to do and how do you strategically approach the job for the next 6 months to set it up so that this fall, just in stride, you hand that baton to Lauren and everything keeps rolling? What are you going to do? How are you going to accomplish this?
Well, here's the thing. Laura and I have been talking. I've been visiting with some of her team, where they've been visiting with my team. And so we're talking about how that transition is going to happen. Look, I told everybody from the very beginning that no matter who won the primary, I was going to be their strategic partner. I was going to work hand in hand with them so that I am able to make that transition very smoothly. And then I'm starting to plant the seeds for what they want to achieve, as well as them helping me achieve what I would like to achieve. So we're going to make a great team. CD4 is going to be represented very well into the future. And so that's what we're going to do. I'll be spending a lot of time with her up in Washington, talking strategy and talking about what we're going to do for the ranchers and the farmers and the water and all those issues that impact CD4. So be rest assured, we're going to have a great plan.
Greg, last question I want to ask you, Greg Lopez. You've had days that you've won. You were the mayor of Parker, so you've won elections before. You've had days that you lost. When you saw the numbers come through, just give us a little insight on somebody that has sought office, been victorious on some nights, lost on some nights. Last night, you saw those numbers come through. It was very clear you're going to win. What goes through your mind, your heart? What did you turn and say to your wife?
Jeff, as those numbers were coming in, it just gave me a sense of people recognizing, Greg, we trust you. We trust you to go up there and do a job that we will be proud of. We know where you stand. You've never given up. You've always been here for us. Yeah, you've won some. Yeah, you've lost some. But you know what? You never go away. You're a principled man. When you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And I showed that, and they showed that they have trust in me. I looked at Lisa last night and I said, hey, are you ready for our next journey? Are you ready for what the Lord has in store for us? And she looked at me and she said, Greg, as long as we're doing it together, I will always stand by your side. So there's a strong team in our marriage. We've been married 36 years. We're looking forward to representing CD4 as a team.
Greg Lopez, his website, greglopez.co. If you want to learn more about him and connect with him, I can now officially say, Congressman, congratulations.
That is cool, Congressman.
Yeah, you know what? And we're neighbors, so I'm going to have to come over and maybe once in a while have a cold one with you.
That's right. He was over the other day having some barbecue, and we were barbecuing some burgers. It was a lot of fun. Greg, you've been a personal friend, and I've said this multiple times. When there was no cameras there, when there was nothing to achieve, by building your own name ID or anything like that, you showed up to testify on behalf of the preborn and advancing the sanctity of life because you believed in the issue. I will never forget that. You are just about advancing Christian conservative principles in the public square. So again, congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. It's been a pleasure. We'll stay in touch.
All right. Look forward to getting updates.
And for goodness sake, Congressman, go do something productive with your day and stop talking to us. Okay? Have a good day.
All right. Coming up next is Ted Harvey. Ted Harvey's a supporter of Dave Williams. I want to get his read on what happened last night. I'm very interested in this because there's a lot. You heard all the negative stuff. All right. Let's get the other side, which you're not going to get on other news stations that drive an agenda. So Ted will be joining us.
Some of those reporters say on TV sometimes with their sport jackets and their funny shows at 6:30. So Kyle Clark. Sorry, there was something in my throat there.
I want to talk to you all about QC Kinetics. Look, life in Colorado is awesome this time of year. We were up rafting over the weekend. It's what I love to do with my kids, but not so much if you got joint pain in your knees or shoulders. The good news is that QC Kinetics is here with the most advanced treatments using regenerative medicine. They harness the healing power from your own body to restore and repair your damaged joint tissue. So many of our listeners have done this, and they are so grateful they're pain-free. QC Kinetics can get you moving again with no surgery, no drugs, and no downtime. This is the future of medicine, and the local medical professionals at QC Kinetics can get you started with a free consultation. QC Kinetics has clinics in Aurora and Superior. Look, guys, you want to keep moving, but you don't want to go under the knife. I get it. Use the power of regenerative medicine and QC Kinetics. If your shoulder or back is always hurting, if it hurts to walk or lift something, you need to check this out. You can get lasting relief. Do it now so you can enjoy the rest of the Colorado summertime like you deserve. Next generation joint pain relief is here at QC Kinetics. Give them a call at 303-900-8986. 303-900-8986 or visit qckinetics.com or painfreecolorado.com. You can connect with them there. All right, Ted Harvey's up next. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. Volkswagen is set to invest up to $5 billion in the US electric vehicle maker Rivian. The German automotive giant announced the investment as part of a deal to share EV software and architecture. The number of air travellers moving through US airports hit a record high on Sunday, but experts predict there'll be a new record and soon. Haley Bianco has more from New York.
The Transportation Security Administration said it screened nearly 3 million people at airports Sunday, breaking a record set on May 24th, the Friday before Memorial Day. But TSA forecasts that it will break the 3 million barrier on Friday, when many people will be getting an early start on their July 4th holiday travel plans. Sunday's TSA count was about 45,000 more flyers than those who flowed through checkpoints on May 24th. 7 of the 10 busiest days in TSA history have occurred this year as travel continues to come back strong from the pandemic. TSA expects to screen more than 32 million people between Thursday and July 8th for a daily average of 2.67 million. That would be a 5.4% increase over the July 4th period last year. Trade group Airlines for America predicts that air travel this summer will rise 6.3% over last year.
And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Some breaking news coming from the U.S. Supreme Court. Only 2 decisions today. We talked about the first one had to do with the Murphy Meade, Missouri, which was social media and the government being dismissed on standing. So they didn't get into a lot of the merits of the arguments, but just kind of dismissed it on standing. The second one has to do with bribery.
I'm open to that. Is that positive for me?
This is a case about the construction of federal bribery laws. Wow.
Yeah.
Which make it a crime for state and local officials to corruptly accept a bribe. The question before the court was whether the law makes it a crime for those officials to accept gratuities that may be given as a token of appreciation after the official act.
Sure.
The answer, the court says, is no. It's not a crime. State and local governments often regulate the gifts that state and local governments may accept. The federal law does not supplement those state and local rules by subjecting the 19 million state and local officials to up to 10 years in federal prison for accepting even commonplace gratuities.
Like, I don't know, gold bars because your friend from Egypt gets to import the money. That's great. I'm sure it was just a gratuity. I'm sure that all those Mercedes and stuff for gold bars, Bob, I'm sure that was just a thank you gift. That was the problem. That's why he's in trouble. This is the issue, is when he was given the new Mercedes, that his benefactor didn't put one of those big bows on like you see in there and say, happy birthday. That would have been fine then. Of course, that would have been fine. Yes, it's just a thank you present.
U.S. Supreme Court given that law and guidance back to the states and local governments. Rather, the federal law leaves it to the state and local governments to regulate gratuities to state and local officials.
Sounds good. Now we just need gratuities for talk show hosts. That's what we need. We need that federally mandated.
So we've been having a myriad of conversations about what happened in Colorado last night in the Republican and Democrat primaries. We heard from Lauren Boebert, Kelly Maher, Mike Buck, Greg Lopez, and now friend of the show, Ted Harvey. Ted, I'm very interested in your perspective. Thank you so much for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, morning.
Good morning, guys. Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, give us the lowdown on your perspective. What happened last night?
Well, on which race? There were a lot of interesting races across the state.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've talked to Lauren Boebert. We've talked to Greg Lopez. How about CD5 with Dave Williams and Jeff Crank? We're going to talk to Jeff a little bit later and Jesse Mallory a little bit later. But I know I can't assume you're friends with Dave Williams, but I think you are. How do you think last night went in Congressional District 5?
Well, I'm friends with both Jeff and Dave. I think it was a fait accompli. Dave had $2 million spent against him. He raised and spent about $200,000. I think that's probably about what Jeff raised as well. So I think if it was mano a mano, it would have been a much closer race, but I think it's almost impossible to overcome a 10-to-1 spending deficit when outside organizations that are hell-bent on making sure you don't win it comes into play. And I think Dave got run over by a steamroller.
We had Kelly Maher on earlier. She is no fan of Dave Williams, thinks he needs to go, that this was indicative of the fact he's out of touch with Republicans. He's going to lead the Republican Party into further losses. What say you about Dave's leadership of the Colorado Republican Party? Should he stay?
Well, definitely he should stay. The Kelly Mahers, and I'm friends with Kelly, of the world that are fighting so hard to remove Dave are upset that they were taken out of power. That side of the Republican Party has been in control of the levers of power for the last 20 years, and they're the ones that have gotten us into a super minority in the House and one vote away from a super minority in the Senate. And I would argue that it's more because of the open primaries that have given us such terrible candidates that is why we are losing. And Dave got elected to close those primaries, and I hope he does so. But he's the pushback that he's getting is from the moderate side of the Republican Party that wants to have open primaries because they realize that's the only way they can win.
Now, Ted Harvey joining us on the Jeff and Bill show. I want to ask you a little bit about that open primary, and you saying the Maher wing of the party doesn't want, certain types of candidates. Last night, only 4 of the Colorado GOP party endorsed candidates won. What does that say about the larger electorate and the GOP primary voters about the choices the party is making?
What do you mean by only one? You mean for Congress?
Oh, no, I think it was 4 out of the 18. There were only 4 winners out of the 18 endorsers. That the vast majority of the people that the Colorado GOP came out and said, these are our candidates, were rejected by voters. What does that say about the party leadership and whether or not they're in touch with the voters? Because that was kind of your tact against Kelly, that's not really what the voters want, and she's outside that bubble. But some of the voters last night rejected the vast majority of the chosen GOP candidates. Why? What does that tell us?
Well, look at the money that was spent against the candidates that were adopted at the assembly process. You look in Douglas County, where Bill Jack went through the assembly process and was the assembly candidate. He had $100,000 spent against him in a Republican House primary. You saw the Colorado League of Charter Schools come in and spend $75,000 against him. You saw Ready Colorado, that is supposed to be a school choice organization, come in and spend money against him. Bill Jack again was outspent probably 5-1, and he lost by 1,000 votes. It's hard to overcome that kind of money when outside groups are coming in and trying to defeat, in my opinion, Christian conservatives.
Well, I'd push back on that a little bit because Lauren Boebert had money flocked to her inside of that district. There wasn't a ton of money that went the other direction. And if it was true that all the dark money was flooding in to oust Christian conservatives, Boebert should have been a victim. She wasn't. In fact, it is the exact 180 degrees of the bromide that you just said about all the money flooding in on the other side. If the money's flooding in on the other side, doesn't mean that it's a bad candidate.
Bill, I can assure you I know more about the 4th congressional race than you do.
So what? Hang on a sec.
As
a
candidate, I can give you.
So what?
Because I can give you an explanation of what happened in that race.
Good, please do.
You had 3 candidates that didn't go through the caucus and assembly process. They petitioned on, and they all got less than 15% of the vote. If they would have gone through the assembly process, we would have winnowed down the field, and you would have had a much more competitive race. The caucus and assembly process is the process that Dave Williams and Republican parties across the state strongly defended and endorsed those candidates that went through the assembly process, including Lauren Boebert. If we would have winnowed down the 4th congressional race with just those people that went through the assembly process, I think it would have been a much more competitive race.
Well, the one thing that you addressed with all your knowledge of the Congressional 4th District that I don't have is about the dark money. You had just previously made an allegation that it was dark money that defeated. Hang on a sec. Hang on. You didn't let me finish. You made an allegation that it was dark money that defeated the Colorado GOP chosen candidates. Boebert is a Colorado GOP chosen candidate. She was a victim of dark money in her other primary, in her other district. Wasn't here. If your truism about dark money coming in to support the non-Christians, it should have been true here. It isn't. Your bromide is wrong. Sorry. The money went directions in which voters supported.
There were 7 candidates in the 4th congressional race.
I'm well aware of that. But
there's no way the dark money could have beaten her with 7 candidates in the race. If you look at the race where it was mano a mano,
sure it could have.
The dark money won in every one of those races.
The dark money could have chosen anybody. You know that. And if they wanted to defeat her with one person, they could have coalesced. They could have coalesced if
in the race.
You're
wrong.
Okay, so you're telling me the dark money has no ability to choose one of the 7. They're absolutely stupid. But you said the 7. They could have chosen anybody. They could have decided on Holtorf. They could have decided on
they would have lost.
They could have decided.
They would have lost with 7 candidates in the race. They all had their own.
No, but hang on. But you said the money overcomes all of it. If they had the money, they would
No,
have
in a
overcome
mono-
it.
mono
See, you're
array.
wrong. See, you're wrong. I'm sorry, but if the dark money is really that effective, it would have worked.
All right.
But that's fine.
You prove your point. I'll prove my point, and I assure you that the numbers make my point very obvious.
We're talking with Ted Harvey, former state senator, former state representative as well. So the state party goes out and endorses publicly. I think this was kind of the first time they'd ever done that. And Ted, I've said this before. I worked for the state party. Every state party chairman wants to go into November with their own team, and so they kind of lean, behind the scenes as to who they're going to want to go into the race with. Dave Williams goes very public with this, publicly endorses particular candidates. Now he has the challenge of trying to build unity after publicly endorsing other people. Can he do that as the chairman of the state party?
Oh, I'm not sure I agree with your premise that he has to have unity. I think he has to win elections. We've lost 3 House seats every election cycle for the last 4 election cycles. I think his number one goal is to stop the bleeding of losing House seats. I think if he wins 1 seat, he's going to be more successful than the last 3 state party chairs. So I'm not sure unity is his goal. I think winning elections is his goal.
And I guess I'm just concerned because they lost a lot of the primary elections they engaged in yesterday. And if the argument is, well, it was because of dark money coming against them, well, we're going to face that in November with Democrats. So how does Dave and the GOP win this November then?
Well, I hope the dark money that got involved in these primaries will be there to help their candidates in the general election. Otherwise, it was a waste of money. We should have saved it and focused on the Democrats.
So the hope that the money that came into these primaries will continue in the general and they'll continue to work. Do you see these dark money groups working with Dave and the GOP, or what's going to be Dave's role if he was kind of on the other side of dark money operations during the primary? Do you think they can come together to achieve victory? Do they need to?
Well, I certainly hope the Colorado League of Charter Schools, who spent so much money in primaries, which is totally baffles me why the Colorado League of Charter Schools would get involved in Republican primaries. 33% of the students in Douglas County go to charter schools. I'm not sure why the charter schools think it's important to get involved in Bill Jack's race. But I hope if they're going to spend that much money in Douglas County Republican primaries, that they will double down in the general elections to help their candidates get elected.
Ted Harvey, former state senator and state representative. What's your message now to Republicans following the wild primary yesterday? And, kind of give us your closing argument for achieving victory in November.
Well, my number one hope is that we can all agree that the caucus and assembly process is the best process there is of winnowing down the pack so that we can have fewer candidates running in Republican primaries. But in the end, the folks that work so hard to spend the money to get these people elected need to double down and work together to work with the Republican Party to get the Republican candidates across the finish line and start taking back seats in the House and in the Senate here in Colorado. We got a long way to go after the failure of the last 3 administrations.
Ted Harvey, I appreciate you being on the Jeff and Bill Show. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So, gosh,
that was fun.
I would. Is it? I'm trying to process everything.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing that I found interesting. That I found interesting with it was the idea that it is the dark money that defeated the chosen candidates, but then you have to rely on the dark money
to win in November. So that's his argument.
Yeah,
that's what he's saying, is that it's not the state part. So look, if you're going to come in and play in races like that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to try to summarize what I think his argument was.
Yeah.
and you and I are both debate people, so we can hold arguments that we don't necessarily agree with, but we can explain them.
Yeah.
So Ted is saying dark money came in and defeated the chosen GOP candidates. All right, dark money, it's your job to carry the victory in November, not Dave's job.
Yeah, which is convenient, as church lady used to say. Quite convenient to be able to wipe your hands of the responsibility. And the question about unity was interesting as well, because it was basically, it's everybody else's job, and the idea that Dave doesn't have to find unity. And I would disagree, because in Colorado, you need every Republican vote you can get, plus some unaffiliateds, or you can't win, because the Republicans are the smallest cohort of registered voters in the state, largest being unaffiliated, second being Democrats, third being Republicans. There are areas where you can get every single Republican vote and still lose. So unity is a priority and should be. I would question the leadership if it's not. And I like the idea of, okay, dark money, you come in. But what I disagree with is the idea of painting it as evil, something that is untoward and we could not possibly have this. But now we need it to win. Hang on. Is it really that bad then? Is he really that upset about it?
I wonder, I don't know if he said it was evil as much as he's saying, you bought the car, now you got to drive it.
Yeah, which
so
is fair.
You're the ones who put the money in. You got your candidate. Now, I do think that Dave Williams has a role in trying to get victory, because I think he should be judged on it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
So, but his argument being those dark money groups came in, you bought the car, now you got to drive it. By the way, in the 9 o'clock hour, we're going to talk to Jesse Mallory of Americans for Prosperity, who put a lot of money into these campaigns. And I want to ask him specifically how he would respond to Ted Harvey.
Yeah, and
it's getting spicy.
And we got one of the candidates that is supposedly the recipient of a lot of that dark money as well, that supposedly pushed him across the finish line. And he'll join us after, Jesse.
Wow, man, this is a spicy
This is
show.
gonna be fun.
Spicy meatball. All right, you guys know that Jeff and Bill Show, top-rated talk radio show by Westward Magazine. Our friends over at Advanced Hair Restoration were rated the top hair restoration company by Westward as well. Great companies doing wonderful things together. Everyone always asks, what makes Advanced Hair Restoration different? Allow me to share, along with some details, and get this on their once-a-year summer savings event. First of all, Advanced Hair stands by the results, and their before and afters are second to none. With Advanced Hair, your own natural hair is guaranteed to grow. Secondly, Advanced Hair combines top-rated physicians with modern technology, creating a concierge quality experience that's hard to find elsewhere. Lastly, Advanced Hair's Advanced FUE begins regrowing your own natural hair the very next day. Quick, simple, easy. If you have a flexible schedule this summer and you've been waiting for that special savings opportunity, it's here. Advanced Hair Summer Savings Event will get you the most hair for your dollar. It's their best offer ever. For details and to schedule your free consultation, call 720-459-HAIR. One-day treatment, life-changing results. Your new hair is guaranteed to grow. Before and afters are available at advancedhair.com. Give them a call, 720-459-HAIR, or visit their website, advancedhair.com. Jesse Mallory with AFP is up next. All the conversation is happening on the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Well, Billy, the text messages are on both sides, surprisingly. Our friend Corey said, thank you for taking on Ted Harvey. He is the epitome of the problem with the Colorado GOP. And then 2156 saying, guys, it's plain and simple. It's the most money wins. Ted is right. It's math.
Yeah, and there's some points on both sides of that. I just think that you and I, Jeff, need to start the theory about if most money wins. We need to start that. We need to figure out how to do that. How do we get dark money? I don't know. That's what we were going to figure out.
Pockets
here.
are open. Gold
yes.
bars, please fill our closets with gold bars.
Yeah,
we're happy.
Gold bars, Bob, do it. That's what we need.
All right, Jesse Mallory with AFP and Jeff Crank are up next. The conversation following the Colorado primary continues on the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Who does it like we do?
Nine a.m. in the Mile High City. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show on 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, providing the freshest insights and hottest takes after a wild Colorado primary last night.
Hi, Mr. Mallory. This is Bill, Jeff and Bill Show. How are you, sir?
Billy, your mic is on, just FYI.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know it was on. Sorry, I'm talking to Jeff. Thank you. I'm talking to the guest right now. That's only the second time I've done on the show. Thank you, sir. Okay, talk amongst yourselves while I sit here and talk with Jesse.
Thank you. Billy, pulling up. Jesse Mallory, state director with Americans for Prosperity, had a big night. They were heavily invested in a number of campaigns, and it all came up aces for them. So we're going to be talking about what he thinks is necessary for conservatives, Republicans to be successful in November, and what did they do to get their candidates across the finish line. So far, you've heard this morning from Lauren Boebert, Kelly Maher, Mike Buck, Greg Lopez, Ted Harvey, and following Jesse will be Jeff Crank. All the conversation and analysis following a competitive primary night here in Colorado is happening on the Jeff and Bill Show. News Talk 710 KNUS. We're going to get to Jesse right after the news with Blake Olson. Good morning, Blake.
Good morning, Jeff. That shows you how good Billy is, man. We've been doing this since February, and he's never left his mic open. I haven't heard him do that before. That was great. And he talks even faster when he's talking on the phone to the guests. That's awesome. 74 and sunny. Great show in Denver. Expecting highs in the mid-90s today. The 710 5-day forecast coming up. Our top story.
Always allowed my MAGA to fly. I've never backed away from the president or his policies or from our conservative principles.
Press is press, good press or bad press. Name recognition is big, and the Republicans in CD4 trusting Lauren Boebert to lead her new District 4 as she wins big in the primary. Boebert moved to CD4 from CD3, and despite 3 or 4 PR nightmares, she kept fighting on with Jeff and Billy last hour.
But when I'm on the ground with the people and connecting with them, they have real life struggles just as I do. I'm not the first person to have a change of scenery in life. I'm not the first person to have unfortunately gone through a divorce or, had an adult child that has, made their own decisions.
Greg Lopez, winner in the special election for CD4, heads to D.C. and will be there for 6 months. One of the ideas he wants to take to the swamp has to do with illegal individuals.
If you're here to work, you have this red card, you're sponsored by an employer, and we understand why you're here. If you don't have this red card, then we got to question, why are you here in America? What are you doing? And this is going to help kind of alleviate a lot of the concern of criminals and those that we need to deport and those that we don't need to deport.
Who'll replace Boebert in CD3? Jeff Hurd won the Republican primary Tuesday. He'll face Democratic candidate Adam Frisch in the general. Jeff Crank defeats Dave Williams in CD5, and Republican strategist Kelly Maher says that Williams, using GOP resources for his own campaign, hurt Williams.
It was disgusting, and he cannot remain chair any longer. And so the question is, who is willing to step up that can unify the different groups of the Republican Party and also can run for state party chair on things like, hey, maybe we should convince unaffiliated voters that we have something that is worth looking at.
Republican strategist Ted Harvey on with the fellas.
I think it's almost impossible to overcome a 10-to-1 spending deficit when outside organizations that are hell-bent on making sure you don't win comes into play. And I think they've got run over by a steamroller.
Mike Buck, no relation to Ken, wins the Republican nomination for commissioner in Elbert County. The key to victory?
My opponents, first of all, they were taking money from developers in their race. How does that, lend itself to be unbiased when an application comes in if you've accepted donations from those same developers?
Nationally, New York's Jamal Bowman lost his seat in the 16th Congressional District to pro-Israel candidate George Latimer. Thank the Lord. The Supreme Court will issue more opinions Thursday and Friday. Among them is a ruling on former President Trump's claim that he is immune from prosecution for alleged crimes committed while in office. Other looming decisions include cases on obstruction charges against the January 6th Capitol rioters and abortion access in medical emergencies. This morning, the High Court ruled in favor of the Biden administration when it comes to contact between government officials and social media companies related to posts containing possible disinformation. Oh, like the disinformation out of the White House, right? Okay, so we'll keep an eye on that.
Ball game, 6 in a row for the Astros. The Astros now move as close as they have been to Seattle.
And on the other hand, the Rockies lose to the Astros, and they keep on falling behind everyone. 5-2 the final. Today, 12:10 first pitch. NBA draft tonight. The Broncos kicking off training camp July 26th and practice with the Packers on August 16th. It's 70 in Arvada, 72 in Lone Tree, and 74 in Denver. Jeff and Bill continue. Blake Olson News Talk, 710 KNUS.
Our 710 5-day forecast will have mostly sunny skies today, which will eventually lead to developing showers and thunderstorms towards evening. Some could be severe. Highs in the lower 90s today with lows tonight in the lower 60s. Thursday and Friday, scattered thunderstorms, some potentially strong. Highs upper 80s, low 90s, lows lower 60s. Showers and thunderstorms will continue through the weekend. Saturday's highs in the mid-80s, lower 90s Sunday. Weather brought to you by Branch Planning. Some income annuities are paying 25 to 45% more than last year. Get a free retirement review by calling 720-651-9800 or find out more at branchplanning.com.
All right, Americans for Prosperity Action was involved in 3 very big congressional primaries yesterday, achieving victory for their candidates in all 3. Joining us is the state director for Americans for Prosperity, Jesse Mallory. Jesse, thanks for being on the Jeff and Bill Show.
And congratulations.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Oh, thank you.
So let's talk about what happened last night in those particular races, in those 3 congressional races. What did the voters say by choosing the candidates that you all were supporting?
Well, I think it's clear that the voters are looking for folks who are going to go there, lead with an agenda, drive on the policies that they care about. And here's the thing. I mean, you guys have been through many elections. You understand that no one's ever seen a TV ad or got a mailer and thought, oh man, it totally changed my worldview and things like that. That sort of thing just does not happen. But the work that Americans for Prosperity Action does is we go door to door. We call people, we have those one-on-one conversations. We actually talk to them about things that they care about. And then, we talk about how our candidates that we're supporting are address that. And it's that ground game that really makes the difference.
And the state party was not always a fan of Americans for Prosperity. And in fact, they judged their endorsements based upon how people felt about Americans for Prosperity, which I never thought was very fair to include. Like, look, I don't mind candidate surveys. Lots of organizations do it. It helps you understand where people are. But to single out an organization that's generally engaging in the promotion of conservative principles and values seemed bizarre to me. When you saw that, and we haven't talked since that went out, Jesse, when you saw that go out on the survey, how did that make you feel as the state director for Americans for Prosperity?
Well, here's the thing: is actually AFP and the state party have always had a really good partnership over the years.
That's what I thought.
It was one chairman and a handful of his friends who were upset about Americans for Prosperity Action's endorsement that really led to this. And what Dave has never told anybody is that he asked for our endorsement in 2022, but that's a separate issue. The thing being is that, at AFP, we're the ones that are suing the state over the gas tax. We're the ones who've been battling Excel and the PUC to keep energy rates low. Protecting Tabor. We are the ground game that defeated HH. The primary game that defeated Prop CC, and the list goes on and on. So we've had this ongoing partnership, and we don't always agree because let's remember the Republican Party's job is to elect, just Republicans, right? Like when Kevin Priola was out there doing really bad stuff when he was a Republican, we are the ones that were holding him accountable. And it was, Republican leaderships who were calling us saying, hey, that's our guy. You can't do that. And I'm like, well, he's not a part of my team. He's a part of yours. Like I'm here for these principles, period. So.
I appreciate that. Jesse Mallory, State Director for Americans for Prosperity, Colorado, joining Jeff and Bill live, talking about the candidates that they endorsed, getting it across the finish line yesterday. One of the things that I found interesting in the conversation right there was you pushed back on Dave Williams getting upset over AFP's endorsement of particular candidates. So the answer from Dave Williams that was mad over the endorsements was to endorse? I just, that's the weird thing for me, was he was mad that you were choosing sides. So the way that he was going to right the ship is choose sides. I mean, if he thought it was wrong, we tell our kids 2 wrongs don't make a right. This is weird. One of the questions I want to come forward is talk about party unity. What do you see from where you sit with Americans for Prosperity? Some of the opportunities and also some of the challenges that are ahead for the Colorado GOP to coalesce behind candidates that the party apparatus didn't necessarily support. How's it going to work out?
So, I mean, look, in my role in America's Prosperity, whether the party's united or not doesn't really change anything. That's not why I exist. I exist to promote, sound fiscal policy, energy abundance, and all those other things. As a former Republican legislative staffer and activist over the years, I can tell you that it's important that, now's the time. I see some of the emails that went out, some of the messages from state party members who are saying we need to rally together, come together, and all those things. But I think when you spend months leading up to this, with party leadership saying some very unkind things about candidates and party officials and other things, the onus is on them to extend that olive branch and to show that they're sincere in this. Because if they don't, we all know while this party is going to attack each other, the Democrats are out there talking about their next level plan. We want to start taking these local seats that Republicans typically hold. So it's like, they're already saying, and as Republicans, they have a lot of ground to make up.
Jesse, just prior to your interview, we had Ted Harvey come on, and Ted said, look, the campaigns that won yesterday were bought and paid for by dark money. It's dark money's job to get them across the finish line in November. What's your response to Ted Harvey?
As somebody who runs a PAC, I find that more than ironic, but or at least ran one for a number of years. But here's the deal, and for us to go out there and draw a solution, and this is time.
Hey, Jesse, you're breaking up a little bit on us. Say what you said again.
Oh, sorry about that. I said our role is to take a message out to the voters of Colorado about a variety of issues, your candidates and other things. And people can have, some people get frustrated with that because they don't like what we're driving toward, or they don't like our candidate. But the bottom line is that, for Ted to say that is disingenuous, especially as somebody who actually runs PACs. I mean, come on. Like I said, our role is to go out there, we talk to the voters, we drive issues, and then it's on the voters to decide whether they agree with that or not.
Now, AFP in the past, I believe, was supportive of Nikki Haley in the presidential Republican nomination process. Are we going to see AFP and Donald Trump coming together this November?
That's historically we've supported a lot of this policy. Now, whether AFP Action supports anything in the presidency, that's the decision, Jeff. But I'll be honest, that's not made at my level. That's made much higher. But what we are doing across the nation in Colorado and many others is that we've been the leading voice holding Biden accountable. We're the ones, when you type in Bidenomics, the White House forgot to buy that website. We bought it, and we're showing people the cost of inflation, the real life impact. We're holding events across the nation, talking about how Biden is making things much, much worse, and giving people the true dollar value of what that means. So, however that decision gets made, the bottom line is we're the leading voice holding Biden accountable.
Yeah, let's talk about the work you all are going to be doing in Colorado. What do you envision the work of Americans for Prosperity between now and November doing on the ground? And then how can people be involved with the work you're doing?
Yeah. So between now and November, I mean, it's Americans for Prosperity Action. We do citizen contact. That's what we do. We go out, we talk to people because, a lot of people are afraid to say, I'm afraid to knock on someone's door. People actually, by and large, if you ask them what they think, they'll tell you. But when you go there and you start trying to push something on them, they don't like that. So what we're going to be doing between now and November is we're going to do what we do. It's our ground game. It's that one-on-one citizen contact in which we're going to drive message for our candidates in order to get them across the finish line so we can actually start making some changes in Washington. Because I think whatever side of the aisle somebody sit on, nobody can look at Washington and say, wow, this is going really well. I mean, we need to start having serious conversations. We got a fiscal cliff that's coming around the corner and a number of other things. It's like we have to spend time getting the right people elected. And then once they get there, making sure they do the things that they say they're going to do. Because as we all know, sometimes people get elected and it starts to get tough and uncomfortable and they don't want to do the thing. And that's why the lobbying side of what we do is so important, because we'll go there. We'll say, hey, you made these promises to do this stuff. And now it's time to enact. Go.
Jesse Mallory is the state director for Americans for Prosperity. Jesse, I will give you this. You guys talk to voters more and better than anybody else I know, on the ground, phone banking, door knocking, all that stuff. What are you hearing back from the citizens of Colorado? What are their biggest concerns? What are their biggest frustrations with the direction of the state? And where do they hope to see things go this November?
I mean, the cost of living is really, really hurting people. We were talking to some folks at one of our gas station events. For those of you who don't know, we'll hold events where we bring the price of gasoline down to what it was before Biden, and talk to folks about the struggles they're facing. And I talked to a number of people who say, this is the most money I've ever made in my life, and I'm doing worse than I ever have. And people are really frustrated. And then they have grave concerns about what's happening at the state legislature when it comes to that they keep saying they're trying to help, but they're like, they want to keep taking my cable refund. Why do they want to keep doing that? I'm like, that's a great question. Let's talk about that. And the energy prices, we battled with Excel and the Public Utilities Commission for a long time. And remember, was it like a year and a half ago when an energy cost in the winter, like I remember my bill was $300 for 1 month. And I couldn't believe it. And the high cost of energy is really impacting folks. So those are sort of things, especially for a lot of communities in the Denver metro area who are living on the margins, because they're trying to get by, and all these little nickel and dime things that people are passing that they say that they're trying to help them is actually having a negative impact. And so what we see our role is giving people a voice in those moments and how to take action and how to make change. Because contrary to what people say, they'll say, people are selfish and they're self-motivated. Well, to a degree. But the thing is the average person stops. They look at the mess in Colorado. They look at the mess in Washington. They don't know where to start. So what we see our role is to be a partner to them, to say, here's how you can make your voice heard, and here's some small steps you can start taking right now to start pushing back against these things that are harming you.
Jesse Mallory, we called you the state director for Americans for Prosperity. You're actually the regional director. My apologies for that. He's growing in his role and influence. Jesse, you've been a politico for many years in Colorado. I appreciate the years of dedication you've made to try to make this state a better place. Thank you for taking time to join us on today's show. If you want to be a part of Americans for Prosperity, go to americansforprosperity.org. americansforprosperity.org. They have different grassroots campaigns. You can join the Colorado Grassroots Campaign. They were hugely successful last night, engaging in 3 campaigns and winning all 3 of those. Jeff Hurd in Congressional District 3, Gabe Evans in Congressional District 8, and Jeff Crank in Congressional District 5. By the way, Jeff Crank's going to be joining us around 9:30 to talk about his victory as well. Jesse, thanks so much for being on the show. Wish you the best of success this fall.
Yeah, congratulations.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks for the time. Take care.
Jesse Mallory. Again, you can join Americans for Prosperity by going to americansforprosperity.org. All right. At 9:30, Jeff Crank. I'm going to ask him about Dave Williams and that whole race. You're not going to get any closer to the actual battle that took place than Jeff Crank and Dave Williams. And we get to have Jeff Crank on next. We invited Dave Williams on. I hope he'll join us as well. I appreciated Ted Harvey giving us his perspective because it's important. It's unique. It's part of the conversation. So, Dave, love to have you as well. I want to talk to you about a great guy named Dan Caplis and Dan Caplis Law. Dan suggests you should choose a lawyer who shares your values because who you choose to represent you in an injury case says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. Dan Caplis Law is Dan Caplis is the son of a police officer. He is also a former seminarian, and he has dedicated the last 40 years of his life to helping people who are hurt in serious motor vehicle crashes. I've known Dan for well over a decade, pro-life, pro-family, pro-America. He supports this show and the work we're doing here at 710 KNUS, so you got the values down. Now you get to the actual work in the courtroom, and Dan Caplis is a titan. Dan is believed to have been the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar verdicts in Colorado crash cases. Dan is also believed to have won the largest truck crash verdict in Colorado history. Dan Caplis Law is the official law firm partner of the Denver Nuggets and the Colorado Avalanche. Dan Caplis Law is a serious firm for serious cases. He accepts righteous injury cases on a percentage fee basis so that he can represent good people from all walks of life without regard to ability to pay. If you need Dan's help, he's who I would call. You need to call him 303-770-5551. That's 303-770-5551, or hit dancaplisLaw.com. That's Dan, CAPLIS law.com. All right, Jeff Crank, winner of Congressional District 5 Republican primary, joining us after the break. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
At this hour in the UK, I'm John Beaver, and here are the top stories we're following. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has returned home to Australia a free man following a US court hearing in Saipan. He won his freedom in exchange for pleading guilty to breaking the Espionage Act in a deal with the US government. Chris Gilbert has more.
After 1,900 days in isolation at the UK's Belmarsh prison and years in exile at the Ecuadorian embassy in London, Julian Assange is now a free man. A US judge in Saipan has ruled that the time he's already served fulfills his sentence for violating the Espionage Act, which Julian Assange concedes he did do, and has pled guilty to the charge of against him, but maintains that he is a journalist and should be protected by the First Amendment, and that the First Amendment and Espionage Act actually contradict each other. And his lawyer, Barry Pollock, speaking to the press after the court ruling before flying back, said that Julian Assange is a whistleblower, and his supporters at the scene urged him to keep going.
The trial of imprisoned Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich has started in Russia. The 32-year-old American is accused of espionage and spying for the CIA, charges he, his employer and the US government strongly reject. And that's what you need to know at this hour. I'm John Beaver in the UK on Salem News Channel.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Billy, this we haven't covered yet. Jorge Bruckler.
Oh, yes. Yeah, he did some frog stomping.
He did.
Yeah.
Like 2-1.
Yeah. That's crazy. But again, it's interesting based on the opponent and the race that was run against him. The other part, though, is... Now, this is just my opinion. This is not endorsed by anybody else.
You shouldn't ignore the show, Billy.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Exactly. Shouldn't ignore the show. We do have a little bit of influence. At least just let you get your voice out. That's the thing that we pride ourselves on here. Is regardless, agree, disagree, we're going to let you get your voice out. The other part that I'm kind of thinking is Rocky Mountain gun owners went very hard in on Brockler on a specific issue.
Right.
And that was red flag laws and his support of them. And based on what happened inside the vote, that either didn't resonate with voters or wasn't the priority they felt it was.
Yeah, it was the candidate they pushed, right? So if you had somebody at George's level, look, George is probably one of the most, if not the most talented prosecutor in this country.
Yeah,
he's brilliant.
He's fantastic.
Right? He's articulate. He's smart. He takes on the hard cases. This guy prosecuted James Holmes in the theater shooting. He prosecuted the STEM shooters. This guy has faced serious challenges.
Here's the thing. We had, and this is not necessarily fair, but saying that if we wanted to, all of the stuff and all the clown show that went on with Alan Bragg when he was prosecuting Trump.
Right.
Now, Brockler would not prosecute Trump, but you put Brockler into that kind of a situation, you don't get the clown show.
That's right.
And the number one thing with someone like Brockler that you would know, regardless of who he's prosecuting at that time, you'd know what the freaking charges are. He's that good. He understands how to tell a story. He understands how to make the case, and he understands what's important inside of the case. He doesn't do the crazy stuff like Bragg does. So he's one of the most solid criminal prosecutors in the country.
So George goes up against Dagny and RMGO. And look, I like RMGO. I've supported RMGO. They got some wins yesterday. But I think they wanted to really send a message to other people considering red flags. So they wanted to make George an example out of that. It was very personal for them. But Dagny Vanderyacht just choosing not to come on the show, not to engage. And she paid a pretty significant price, losing 65-35 essentially to George Brockler. And a hearty congratulations to our former colleague, friend, George Brockler. He's going to make a great district attorney in the 23rd Judicial District. I'm sure he's going to have to prosecute some tough cases. We'll rely on him as an expert, but he's got a big job ahead of him right now. He's got to build a whole new office that hasn't existed. In like 60 years, Colorado hasn't had to build a new DA's office. George Brockler is going to lead that. He's going to do a fantastic job. Other things we didn't get to cover yet. Timmy Hernandez, he's out of there. He's gone, lost by about 700 votes. Elizabeth Epps losing even bigger by about 4,000 votes, around about 3,500 votes to Sean Camacho, who we talked about on earlier this week. So those two facing, they're gone. The kind of radical left wing, the Democrat socialists getting driven out by their own party. Is the Democrat Party here in Colorado as radical leftist as, we sometimes complain about? Both Cecilia Espinoza, who went against Timmy Hernandez, and Sean Camacho, who went against Elizabeth Epps, both made the argument that in heavily Democrat districts, that both Epps and Hernandez were far too progressive and liberal and weren't where the voters were. And they won the argument yesterday. So as though the Democrats not as crazy as we thought they were, as they're kind of a balancing out that's taking place. So,
yeah, and I'll talk a little bit about that, because I do think that you've got some self-correction here for the Colorado Democrat Party. I feel like they've seen the direction the wind is blowing, and they understand that the histrionics that Epps and Hernandez have been involved in aren't going to resonate with voters and actually end up hurting the larger brand. that they feel that the antics inside the legislature and outside the legislature of those two hurt the overall perception of Democrats in the state. And guess what? They're right. They're 110% right. And the crystallization of that wrong-headedness of Epps and of Hernandez could be seen on this weekend's newspaper. I believe it was Monday morning. It was post-Pride Parade, and it was the Palestinian protesters had disrupted the Pride Parade. And they had a picture right in the center of course, all the lawmakers that get up behind the microphone and talk about how important pride is to them. And there's Hernandez standing on the stage, holding a Palestinian flag, supporting the people that just disrupted the event that he is speaking at. What kind of Scooby-Doo world do you live in when you think, Mr. Hernandez, that you can support the protesters at the event and then stand up at that same event and have any credibility left in your entire soul? You got what you deserved. And just a reminder, you haven't been elected to a single office. You were given that job. Incumbency is one of the best things you can have in politics. You managed to mess it up. Yeah, you messed it up. So understand that when you have to look at your Democrat colleagues for the next few months as they're running into the general this fall.
Billy, I would like to make a public announcement for our LGBTQ friends who are a little confused when it comes to the pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas side, okay? Because you've seen these protests, they like meet together. So just a word of advice to my LGBTQ friends, that if a pro-Hamas terrorist invites you to a rooftop party or to hang around near a crane, don't take advantage of it. Walk away. Walk away. I can't for the life of me figure out how they're allowing this this kind of cohesion, this coalescing of the LGBTQ and pro-Hamas to come together. I think there's a bizarre intellectual breakdown that's taking place there. So, Billy, do we got Jeff?
Yes, he and I are chatting off air. We're friends. Hang on. I'll be right there with you.
I know. I'm watching them have a conversation. I'm going, we got Jeff. We only got limited time. Come on. I want to get Jeff Crank on the air.
He's my friend now.
I know he's your friend. He's everybody's friend. He won big yesterday.
He did. Even though the last time that he joined Jeff and Bill Live, we were hanging out with Officer Tatum, and he and I did a fun intellectual pugilism, but it was fantastic. And that's why he is a very special friend of the show. But today, Mr. Crank, today is about celebrations. We can take those debates and fun that we can have that we enjoy elsewhere. But today, sir, congratulations. You did an excellent job, and you are now headed to this fall election to be a potential member of Congress. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. It's great. It was a fun night. It was a fun night for all the great supporters and folks of mine who were there and worked so hard. And, you know, that's what's so amazing about being a candidate is you get this just overwhelming sense of responsibility that grows as you get closer to the election. You don't want to let down all the people who put their faith in you. You know, I have a friend, Ashley, who's our scheduler. In fact, you all work with Ashley, I think, to schedule stuff. And, you know, she just gives of her time. She's a mom, and, you know, she was just in tears last night winning. So that's who this was for. It's not about me for sure. I'm just kind of honored to be in the position I'm in, but thank you.
Jeff, this was a big win, 65-35 over Dave Williams, chairman of the Colorado Republican Party. What are the voters of Congressional District 5 saying with last night's resounding victory, handing you the Republican nomination?
Well, I think what they're saying is they want to win again in Colorado. They don't want the party to be about division. They don't want the party trying to pick winners and losers, just like they don't want government picking winners and losers. They don't want the power brokers in the party deciding that this person or that person should be the nominee. The voters want to decide. They want to have a hearty debate. But look, I'm most excited about, I've already talked to Gabe Evans in the 8th Congressional District, Jeff Hurd in the 3rd, and talked with Congresswoman Boebert this morning. And I'm excited to go. Look, we have to go as a Republican team to Washington, D.C. and work on the conservative team. That's the whole point. Is we don't need to go fight the conservative team. We need to go be a part of the conservative team. And I'm very excited about that. And I think that's the message that the voters sent.
I want to talk to you about last night, too, because I was trying to analyze what was going to happen. I looked at Congressional District 3, and my gut was telling me that the voters there were kind of going, we kind of want to go back to the Scott Tipton days. We're not necessarily wanting our congressperson to be in the news all the time. And when I looked at your district, I saw it could go one of two ways, right? It could lean more like Congressional District 4. We like Lauren Boebert, the fighter. Go out there and throw some elbows. Or it could, maintain with the kind of Doug Lamborn statesman-like approach, right? You didn't get a lot of articles written about Doug, but he always delivered for the people of his district. He was a good statesman, good conservative, but wasn't always, angry tweeting out there. It seemed to me that that's where the voters of Congressional District 5 want to remain. They, Dave's out there and he sends bold emails that get a lot of news attention, that type of thing. But it seemed like they were going, we like the way Doug led. We think Jeff's kind of more in that mold of being a statesman, and we want him to represent us. We're a big military town. We don't necessarily always want the controversy. Do you think that was part of the calculations in the voters' minds?
I think there's some of that. I think they'll be surprised. I'm not going to be a wallflower. I'm not going to go there and just do the speaker's bidding. And I think if anybody expects me to go do that, they're in for a surprise. But look, I want to be a team player. I am tired of fighting Republicans. I want to fight Democrats. I want to go fight people who have a different worldview of America than I have. And so, to me, that's what I want to go do. I'm going to probably be out there doing more radio, doing more TV and stuff than Doug did. I'm just different that way. I was, this was my business for a long time, right? So I think I'm going to be different than Doug in a lot of ways. But look, I'm going out there. We've got too many problems facing America, and I think the message that the voters sent last night in Colorado, but I think have been sending in primary after primary across the country is, they want a Republican Party that can govern. They don't just want a Republican Party that can go out and be disruptive. They want one that can actually advance the cause.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Jeff Crank joining Jeff and Bill live. He is fresh off winning his primary in Congressional District 5. Now, this is what I've got to ask you. Just had a caller off air that wanted to know how you can be different than Lamborn. What her pushback on Lamborn was, liked him, but didn't feel that he did anything in Congress, that he was more a guy that was just sitting there in the chair, vote when he needed to, and enjoy the perks. Now, we can put that aside whether or not you agree or disagree with that, but her question is, how can you be different than that type of a representative?
Well, I mean, again, I think I'm going to be out there a little more on some of the issues. I don't want to say a leader. I think Doug led on a lot of things. Like if you go talk to the Jewish community, Doug was a real leader on Israel, on the security of Israel. Doug was a known leader on that issue. Now, there's maybe not a lot of people that saw him as that, but I can tell you that many folks in the Jewish community do believe he was a great leader and that they're losing him on that. So, but look, I think there's going to be lots of things out there where I will try and take the lead, but I'm not going to be the guy that goes and has to run and elbow every other member of Congress to get to a camera, right? It's just not in my nature. My dad didn't raise me that way. I've never been that way, and I'm not going to start being that way. But look, I want to work with the Republican conference to see if there's a way that they can use the communication skills and other things that I've just had for years and honed through, working on the radio, doing podcasting, all those sorts of things. I think I'm going to be different in many, many ways from Doug, but I'm also want to go and, as I say, just be constructive for the conservative team. I'm not going to go there to compromise my principles but I will compromise on things where principles aren't involved, right? To get something done. I've used the TikTok bill as an example that, where Democrats and Republicans came together, they found a solution and they passed it. Those are things that we should do and compromise on. But when it comes to things like, taxes, the federal government, spends too much money. There is more revenue coming in than ever before in tax revenue. We don't need new taxes. I'm not going to compromise on those things, but I will go out and be a leader for limited government and talk about those issues.
Now, Jeff Crank, I want to keep this one very short. We have limited time. Jeff has another phone question for you, but I wanted to honor another phone call that we got off air. They asked, are you a Trump supporter? Yes or no?
Absolutely, and I always have been, and that was the rap. Look, when you get in a primary, you try and find something against your opponent. My opponent tried to use that against me. There was never any evidence that I wasn't a Trump supporter. I supported him in 2016. I emceed his rallies in 2016, emceed him in 2020. I gave him money, for goodness sakes. I mean, I've contributed money to Donald Trump's campaign in 2024. I am a Trump supporter. I'm going to do everything I can to get him elected because we can't have Joe Biden for another 4 years.
Jeff Crank, 18 years ago, I was a young intern talking about coming and volunteering for your campaign when it was being managed by a guy named Jim Banks. Right. 18 years. You've looked at this seat. Last night, the votes come in. You turn to your wife, and what do you say?
Well, I gave her a big hug. I thanked her for standing by me for 33 years of marriage and 3 congressional campaigns. And, it definitely was a surreal feeling the way we do elections here in Colorado. It's like you have no votes. The vote count is 0. And then all of a sudden, a second later, they are, oh, you've won. So it's just a very weird feeling. I've never looked at it as an 18-year journey, to be honest with you. I just moved on. After I lost those races, I went on and did other things. And I'll be honest, I think that's the lesson here. God's richly blessed me, and he richly blessed me. And I said this last night in my speech. After I lost in 2006, God richly blessed me in my life, in my career, with my family. And it wasn't really until I just forgot about whether I was going to be a member of Congress or run for office or whatever. Once I forgot about all of that is when God presented the opportunity to me to run. And so it wasn't about ego. It wasn't about any of that kind of stuff. It was just, I was just enjoying life and doing good things, that opportunity came by. So for me, it was really awesome. It's just, again, it's great for me, but for all the people that, put their emotion, their time, their effort into it, that's what that win was for last night.
Jeff Crank, the Republican nominee for Congressional District 5, likely to go on to victory in November, will be the representative for the Congressional District 5, which is Colorado Springs, the El Paso area. If you want to get to know him, his website's jeffcrankforcongress.com, jeffcrankforcongress.com. It's been a big night and a big morning. We know you're very busy. Congressman, thank you for taking time to join the Jeff and Bill Show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you both. I appreciate you and look forward to being on with you anytime.
We will look forward to that as well. So, I mean, that is a journey.
It is.
That is a journey. A big congratulations. Him and Greg Lopez as well. And I think that's an important message to a lot of folks that, the first time out is not always the end.
Yeah.
And I said that to Peter Yu. That, gosh, what a talented young guy. I don't think he should be a lawmaker. I think he should be a mayor. And I hope he pursues stuff like that. Yeah. So we've got some unity to rebuild. That happens after every primary.
Yep.
I worked my tail off to try to get Rick Santorum to be the Republican nominee in 2012.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
then about 6 weeks and a lot of hurt feelings and coming over it, I went to go work my tail off so Mitt Romney could beat Barack Obama.
Wow. Now,
you get over it.
Yeah, you do. And here's another example of that right there. Now, we can call him friend of the show, Jeff Crank. When he was defeated by Doug Lamborn back in 2006, Guess who endorsed him this time around?
Yep.
Doug Lamborn.
Yep.
Yeah. So
That's
yes,
right.
you can rebuild. You absolutely can rebuild, and party unity is important. Yes, it's another great example.
And going through life like that.
Yeah,
man,
absolutely.
what a great way to wrap up the show too.
I know.
Where
Big
the
giant
guy
hug.
talks about, he turns towards his wife after 18 years of hard work. George Brockler winning last night.
Yeah. Bunch of hard work.
Open new chapter in his life as well.
Yeah, because he had started something new here with this career, and people don't know it behind the scenes that it was a difficult choice, and he did not plan this until right near the very end. He couldn't really make a decision. George couldn't. He was torn because it was his desire, his passion, and I haven't talked about this on the air before, but I turned around and he and I had a conversation off air, and I said, listen, I understand this dichotomy, this difficulty you're having, because if I'm outside of radio and someone else gives me an opportunity to get back in, dude, I get it. I understand that draw. That's what you're good at. That's what fills your soul. And if that's your desire, if that's where you feel you're being called, and if that's where you feel your skill set is going to be the best used for Colorado, yeah, go for it. And this is, a while before he actually decided, but it was still that machination. He didn't decide until very, very late. And unfortunately, God's called me to do this, and you're stuck with me. I'm sorry. I apologize about that deeply to each and every one of you.
My favorite conspiracy theory was that somehow KNUS had fired George.
I know.
And thought that I was a step up.
Well, the fact that, and here's the thing is to think about how dumb it was. It took two of us to replace that one. I mean, come on.
Right.
Yeah, come on.
So, all right, Dagny.
Yeah.
You're welcome back on the show. Anytime. I know it was not us. It was you who decided you didn't want to come on the show, but we'll bring you back. All right, we're going to wrap up all the analysis on the Colorado Republican and Democrat primaries. You're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Now, there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts, text message your favorite local hosts, call the show, get the latest headlines, and enter contests to win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
I want to thank everybody for being a part of today's show. Lauren Boebert, Greg Lopez, Kelly, Mike, Mallory, Jeff Frank, Ted Harvey, the winners and losers in Colorado's Republican primaries. If you missed it, go to 710knus.com. We'll be back tomorrow to preview the debates. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
News Talk 710 KNUS. Have a good day.